Chapter 40-37. Xing lightly pressed out with her palm, striking the middle-aged man from afar. The middle-aged man looked ordinary. No one would notice him in a crowd. He was expressionless, like a wooden man. Bang! The middle-aged man flew backwards and spat out a mist of blood. He fell to the ground, motionless, dead. Good! Xinli applauded. Xing turned to glare at him, extremely dissatisfied. Her younger brother was too disappointing and had no ambition. If it had been someone else, she would have rushed forward to kill. He should be angry that she had done it for him, but he was happy instead. He was like a hedonistic son of a rich family. Sister Shen, be careful, Jingxue said. They are disciples of the Creation Sect. Creation Sect? Xing frowned. The Creation Sect had always been mysterious and low-key, but she knew that they were powerful and it was best not to provoke them. Among the 5 sects of Tianan, 3 sects had disciples who could reincarnate. The Creation Sect, Church of Jiyo, and the Lotus Sect. Why did she pick the Lotus Sect? It was because they were the easiest to attack, followed by Church of Jiyo and the Creation Sect. However, she did not expect that they would provoke her instead. Of course, she could not back down. No matter how powerful they were not Jingru. They could still fight. Jingxue said, "Why did the Creation Sect want to kill the entire village?" "Because the stronghold has recently obtained a treasure," Xinli said. "What treasure? Tell me." Xing knew his temper. One look and she knew he wanted to keep them in suspense again. Doing so now was asking for a beating. Even if she did not attack, Jingxue would not be polite. Hee. Xinli laughed. "It's a bracelet. You know where it is." Xing scoffed. Xinli said, "It should be in the chief's house. He loves it so much that he says it's very ordinary, just an ordinary bracelet. He likes it because it's pretty. But he doesn't like pretty people at all." "Let's go." Xing scoffed. "Let's go take a look." The group of 5 bypassed the 100 people and continued up. They arrived at a large hall and passed through it to a small courtyard at the back. Xinli giggled and said, "Fort Master likes to collect antiques very much and is a knowledgeable person. Since he loves it so much, it must be extraordinary." "Shut up, hurry up and find it." Xing snorted. After they entered the courtyard, they found a middle-aged man sitting in the gazebo drinking. He paused and put down the silver cup, his hand still on the cup. Xinli glanced at the middle-aged man and said with a smile, "Is Stronghold Master still conscious?" "No." Chu Li shook his head. "He's unconscious." "That's good. I still want to stay here. I can't offend him." Xinli smiled and said, "Here it is." As he spoke, he reached into the middle-aged man's bosom and took out a black bracelet. It looked like it was made of black iron. "It should be a type of strange weapon, right?" Xinli picked it up and sized it up. After weighing it in his hands, he exclaimed, "So heavy! Give it to me." Xing snatched it and flipped through it a few times. In the end, she shook her head with a frown and handed it to Jingxue. Jingxue smiled and took a look at it before handing it to Chu Li. Chu Li had been observing the bracelet attentively. This bracelet gave him a strange feeling. It was as if it did not exist. If it was not so clear in front of him, he would have doubted its authenticity and whether it was an illusion. Xing snorted. "It looks normal." Jingxue nodded lightly. "It looks normal, but it's definitely not normal. But we can't tell what's so special about it." Xinli said, "Is it because it's heavy? Is it sturdy?" He took out the long sword from the stone table and slashed at the black bracelet on Chu Li's hand. Ding! The long sword bounced back, almost injuring Xinli. He jumped in fright and his expression changed. Xing blushed for him and said coldly, "Don't move." Xinli smiled. "I just want to know what kind of treasure it is." Stronghold Master's eyes are very sharp. It's definitely not an ordinary treasure. Chu Li thought about it and reached out his hand. The sword had already landed in his hand, and suddenly disappeared without a trace. It was as if it had never been there. Shunli turned his head and looked around. He did not find the long sword. This? Shunli was even more confused and looked at Chu Li. A long sword suddenly appeared in Chu Li's hand. It was the Stronghold Master's long sword. However, this sword was faintly cold and concealed. It was a treasured sword. This little Stronghold Master was so wealthy. He even had a treasured sword like this. Was he someone with a powerful background? He turned to look at Jing Shui. Jing Shui had a good understanding with him. She knew what he was saying with one look. She shook her head. This Stronghold Master is an ordinary martial artist. He's not from a famous sect. Chu Li sighed. There are hidden dragons and snakes in the great swamp. There are masters among the people. Other than liking antiques, the Stronghold Master is not a master. Xin Li smiled. This sword is also lucky. I exchanged it with someone else. It was originally a broken sword, but he soaked it in something for a night and it became like this. His methods are indeed brilliant. Chu Li nodded. Xin Li hurriedly asked, Hero, what kind of treasure is this? Chu Li said, It can be considered a void treasure. It can store the void in a bracelet. It's amazing. It might not be something from this world. A void treasure, Xin Li said. It's called a void bracelet? Void bracelet. That's appropriate. Chu Li smiled. Ha. Xin Li raised his eyebrows at Shen Xing. Shen Xing glared at him coldly and did not say anything. Jing Shui said, How can there be such a treasure? Is there really someone in this world who can solve the mystery of the void? The mystery of the void will definitely be solved. However, I'm afraid it won't be in this world. It might involve heavenly demons. The heavenly demons know the most about the void. He looked at the void bracelet with a heavy expression. Keep it. Shen Xing shook her head. This bracelet is a big problem. The creation sect will not let this go. She looked at Xin Li. After this, the creation sect would come again. Chu Li said, I will go to the creation sect and explain. The skilled are bold. Shen Xing gave him a sidelong glance. Let me tell you, the creation sect is unpredictable. It's better to be careful. I will be careful. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Miss Xin, do you want to come with me? I won't accompany you to death. Shen Xing scoffed. She did not want to be a burden to Chu Li. In a place like the creation sect, an additional burden could be fatal. Jing Shui said, Senior brother, you should go alone. However, you must be careful. I really can't see through the creation sect. Anyone who could not see through them was a powerful person. The entire creation sect was shrouded in a dense fog. However, the creation sect disciples could see it when they left the sect. Chu Li smiled and nodded. He continued to stare at the void bracelet. It was indeed much more convenient with this item. It was a key to unlocking the mystery of the void. With this, it would be easier for him to understand the mystery of the void. If he solved the mystery of the void, would he be able to travel freely between the layers? Would he be able to see Shao Qi and the others? Chapter 40-38. As time passed, he missed Shao Qi and the others even more. They were like shadows that could not be erased or cut off. He could not wait to see them tomorrow. He nodded at Jing Shui and Xin Xing, then said to Xin Li, Don't be careless. The creation sect has come here once, which means that they have their eyes on us. Even without the void bracelet, they will come again. What should we do? Xin Li asked. Chu Li said, The best way is to let Miss Xin stay here. Xin Xing scoffed. Jingru, you're up to no good. You want me to fight the creation sect, right? Chu Li said, Miss Xin can help me deal with these people. All right. Xin Xing nodded lightly. Her younger brother almost died. She was furious but did not show it. Her murderous intent surged in her. If not for the fact that she was comfortable with Jingru, even if they were enemies, she would still be comfortable and considerate. He clearly knew of her anger and murderous intent and purposely left them for her so that she could vent her anger. As for the creation sect, she had her reservations, but it was not to the point where she would not seek revenge. As long as the reason was justified, she would kill them. She had to pretend to be unwilling to do so to make others think that she had no choice. Jing Shui pursed her lips and laughed. She could see through the scheming between the two of them at a glance, but she felt that Shen Xing was getting more and more excessive, not appreciating the benefits she had received. Chu Li shook his head and smiled at Shen Xing before disappearing. The next moment, he appeared at the foot of the creation sect's mountain. He did not know where the creation sect was, but based on the aura of that group of people, he was able to locate the creation sect. He looked up at the sky. There were dark clouds with faint flashes of lightning, as if the dark clouds were chained up by silver chains. He frowned as he felt the tyrannical power contained in the dark clouds. This power was earth-shattering and was not inferior to the abyss. The power of the golden pool was pure and flawless. He could not feel any pressure as it was gentle and peaceful like spring water. On the other hand, the power of the abyss was like a giant beast ready to devour and destroy at any time. This dark cloud's power was completely different. It was like the power of heaven and earth. No one could survive a single blow. Chu Li shook his head. This was the creation sect, the most mysterious place. Although the 5 sects of Tianan South did not have a ranking, the creation sect was vaguely ranked first. He saw a memorial arch with the words "Creation Sect" written on it. It shone with a strange golden light under the sunlight. This golden light was different from the usual. It seemed to be black, gold, and white at the same time. When Chu Li stared at it, he felt that it was a flowing light that was constantly changing. A tyrannical force came straight at him, intending to shatter his spirit. Chu Li shook his head. He focused his gaze and unleashed the firmament sword. Bang! A muffled sound resounded in the void. The golden light suddenly brightened, and transformed into a golden sword that pierced through the air. Chu Li wielded the firmament sword again. Ding! It was like the sound of metal clashing. The golden sword clashed with the invisible force, producing a sound that sounded like a real sword. Then, it disappeared without a trace. Chu Li knew that he had passed this hurdle. At the same time, he had alerted the creation sect, and they knew that they had come with ill intentions. This was a strange technique. It was both a test and a warning. If a small memorial arch had such power, what more inside the creation sect? Chu Li scoffed and shouted, "Jing Ru of the Lotus Sect greets sect leader Zhou of the creation sect." His voice floated endlessly on the entire peak. Even the dark clouds in the sky seemed to sense it. The lightning on the dark clouds suddenly increased, and the silver chain was 3 to 4 times stronger than before. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. "Jingru?" A leisurely voice rang out, echoing in his ears. Chu Li felt that this voice did not belong to a woman. Yes. Could it be sect leader Zhou? Chu Li frowned and asked in a low voice. His voice was low, but it still clearly spread throughout the entire creation sect. The disciples of the creation sect all had ugly expressions. His voice could clearly be heard throughout the entire sect, ignoring the sect protection formation. This cultivation level was shocking, and it was clear that he had come with ill intentions. "I am Chong Luo, the right guardian of the creation sect." The man's voice floated over. He said calmly, "Sect leader Zhou does not need to personally deal with trivial matters." Chu Li said, "I wonder if sect leader Zhou needs to personally examine this bracelet?" As he spoke, he flashed the void bracelet on his wrist. Chong Luo was surprised. He asked calmly, "Where did this bracelet come from?" Chu Li said, "I obtained it from a mountain stronghold. I did not expect such an ordinary mountain stronghold to have such a mystical item. Coincidentally, I came across a group of cold-blooded people slaughtering the stronghold, so I saved the stronghold and obtained the bracelet." "What about that group of people?" Chong Luo asked in a low voice. Chu Li said, "They've already been killed. Such inhumane people will only bring harm to the world if they live. It's better for them to reincarnate as soon as possible." "Dead," Chang Luo muttered to himself. Chu Li smiled. "Could it be that Guardian Chang knows these inhumane people?" Chang Luo suddenly chuckled. He knew that Chu Li wanted to force him to deny it, but as the right guardian of the creation sect, why did he have to listen to him? Why did he have to be coerced? Chu Li said, "It seems that you do know them. Could it be a disciple of the creation sect?" "I don't think so. Their methods are cold and cruel, not even sparing a 3-year-old child. They are truly inhumane. How could they be a disciple of a large sect like the creation sect?" "What you see may not be the truth," Chang Luo said plainly. "Jingru, hand over the bracelet." "It seems that they really are disciples of the creation sect," Chu Li said in a low voice. "The creation sect's despicable behavior is beyond imagination." Chang Luo said, "If you don't hand it over, we will have to offend you." Chu Li smiled. "Even if you hand it over, you will still have to make a move, right? You want to avenge the disciples of the creation sect, right?" "Jingru, you are a smart person," Chang Luo chuckled. Following the laughter, a figure appeared in front of Chu Li. It was a handsome young man with jade-like features. He looked like he had just reached adulthood and was the youngest. He did not look like a respected guardian, but more like a disciple who had just entered the sect. He knew that the more one practiced the martial arts of the creation sect, the younger one would become. When they first started practicing, they would become older. Once they reached the next level, they would become younger. Chu Li looked at him calmly. "I just want to see sect leader Zhou. The sect leader is in isolation and cannot meet you." Chang Luo said, "We are enough to deal with you." He waved his hand as he finished speaking. 16 young men appeared out of thin air, holding wooden swords in their hands. They surrounded Chu Li as if they wanted to toy with him. Chu Li frowned as he looked at the 16 young men. It seemed that the creation sect knew him well enough to send their most powerful masters. Since they knew him so well, they still dared to let these people fight. It was obvious that they were confident of winning. "Kill him," Chang Luo said quietly. The 16 young men pointed their swords at the sky. Suddenly, 16 bolts of lightning landed on the tip of the sword. The swords were wrapped in silver light, like a silver snake coiling around them. Chi! The 16 swords stabbed out at the same time. The void seemed to freeze. Chu Li originally wanted to use his body movement technique, but was forced to stop. Ding 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 ding. Amidst the concentrated sounds of metal clashing, Chu Li's 10 fingers lightly played, as if he was playing the strings of a zither. The 16 wooden swords flashing with silver light flew out and turned into ashes in the air. Chu Li's face darkened. The 16 rays of silver light had already drilled into his body and were about to destroy it. Even his soul would be burned and destroyed. P.S. Update complete. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 4039. These 16 swords were condensed and strange. They had the ability to destroy souls. If they attacked the Lotus Sect disciples, they would die without a doubt. It was impossible for them to reincarnate. The creation sect's strength was astonishing. The Lotus Sect and the Zenith Royal Sect might only have 1 or 2 masters of this level, but the creation sect had 16 of them. Clearly, these 16 were not the top masters. Swoosh! 16 silvery lights suddenly appeared in the air, like 16 silver longswords. The 16 youths caught them and swung them at Chu Li. Chu Li could feel the destructive power. He did not dare to take it head-on. His figure flickered a few times. He could not use God's limbs. The air around him seemed to be locked by an invisible force. He faintly felt that the locking force came from the dark cloud. He could only use his inner energy to activate his body movement technique to avoid the 16 silver sword. The bodies of the 16 youths shot out silver lights and merged with the silver swords. They suddenly sped up and caught up to him. Chu threw a light punch. Hum! A strange vibration sounded. The air trembled. The 16 youths seemed to be unable to support their bodies. The direction of their silver swords changed. Chu was so close that he was not pierced by the silver swords. A silver sword scattered in the air, turning into a silver light that merged with the void and disappeared. The youth holding the silver sword also disappeared. The 15 youths looked at each other, feeling the gravity of the situation. The source of their strength came from the creation pool. If they left the creation sect, their strength would be reduced to 70 to 60%. They would not be a threat to Chu. But in the creation sect, with the power of the creation pool, they were no different from gods. Even if an enlightened master came, they would not be afraid. This was why the creation sect was so confident. They kept a low profile and did not want to compete with the other 4 sects in Tianan. But now, someone had killed their companions in the creation sect. Although their companions could be reincarnated in the creation pool, it was still a head-on attack. This was not something even an enlightened master could do. Chu did not directly destroy their souls. He had not reached that level yet. Swoosh! With a light whistle, the 15 youths sped up again, faster than they could react. Chu had already predicted their movements, so he took a step back and dodged their silver swords just in time. He then took another step forward and lightly punched the tip of a silver sword. Ding! With a clear ring, the silver sword and the youth collapsed together, turning into a silver light that disappeared into the void. Chu shook his head and said, "Guardian Chong, forget it." "Good skills." Chong Luo frowned and said in a low voice, "What exactly do you want?" Chu replied, "That's all there is to meet sect leader Zhou. It looks like I'll have to beat you up until you're in pain before you can meet sect leader Zhou." He wanted to know if Zhou Qinglan was the person he was looking for. After entering the creation sect, his instincts had become less acute. It was very difficult for him to determine whether or not Zhou Qinglan was the one he was looking for. It might be, but it might not be. He was really confused. Ever since he mastered the scripture of the great wisdom source, he always had the pearl of wisdom in his hands. No matter how difficult or dangerous the situation was, he was always calm. "Impossible," Chong Luo snorted. The more Jingru wanted to see the sect master, the more he couldn't let her have her way. With her cultivation, it would be a disaster if she wanted to harm the sect master. The sect master was not someone with amazing martial arts. Instead, he did not know martial arts. This was a great mystery that the whole world didn't know. Most people would not be able to see the sect master's depth when they saw him, but Jingru's profound cultivation level might not be able to hide it. Chu scoffed and said, "Stopping me like this, could it be that there's something shameful? Has your sect master been harmed?" "Ha ha!" Chong Luo laughed loudly. This was the most ridiculous joke. Who in the creation sect could bear to harm the sect master? They could not even bear to say a word of disrespect to the sect master. Chu frowned and said, "Or is it that your sect master's cultivation has gone astray and his martial arts has been crippled?" "Heh." Chong Luo laughed again. This time, his smile was a little unnatural. He tried his best to hide it, trying to act normal, but he could not hide it from Chu. No matter how subtle his expression was, it could not hide from Chu's eyes. His gaze froze and he looked at Chong Luo in surprise. Chong Luo shouted, "Kill him with all your might." "Yes." The 14 youths looked at each other and nodded lightly. Chu frowned and said, "There's no need to die together." Chong Luo's expression changed slightly and he shouted, "You can see through people's minds?" Chu said, "I just know a thing or two. Looking at your expressions, who doesn't know that you're about to use your ultimate move? And in the creation sect, with the creation pool, your ultimate move is nothing more than a mysterious technique that destroys indiscriminately. Am I right?" Chong Luo secretly let out a sigh of relief, but his expression was solemn. He said in a low voice, You're so smart, but be careful that you don't die young. Chu Li laughed and said, Looks like I've guessed correctly. Do it. Chang Luo decided not to waste any more words with Chu Li. Otherwise, Chu Li would be able to see through him, and that would be a big problem. His murderous intent was burning and his eyes were burning. The 14 youths saw his murderous intent and nodded silently. They had already ignited themselves, and instantly, the silver light in their hands was so dazzling that no one could look at it directly. The light on their bodies became dimmer and dimmer, like candles that were about to be extinguished. Finally, they were completely extinguished and merged into the silver swords. Chu Li's expression was solemn and he shouted, They've really gone mad. Hum! The entire void trembled again. This time, his body trembled as he could not control himself. Then, he watched as the 14 silver swords pierced towards him. Chang Luo let out a smile. No one could escape from this sword, and it was impossible for them to survive. This Jing Ru was a powerful person, but unfortunately, she came here to provoke him and brought about her own destruction. Chu Li could not blame her. The smile on his face suddenly became solemn and his expression became gloomy. The silver light dissipated and Chu Li's figure was revealed. Chu Li's expression was also extremely gloomy. He stared at Chang Luo and shouted, What a creation sect! How did you survive? Chang Luo said in a low voice. This was what he wanted to know the most. Chu Li laughed coldly, again? Let's see if you have more masters like him. If not, then it's my turn. He took a step forward and stood in front of Chang Luo, lightly throwing a punch. Chang Luo knew that this punch was powerful and could not take it head-on. He took a step to the side to avoid it, and at the same time, he used his palm as a sword and slashed towards Chu Li's left rib. Chu Li's punch seemed to be slow and relaxed, but it accurately hit his palm. Poof, 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 poof. The sound of pebbles being thrown into a deep well was heard. Chang Luo suddenly stiffened and his body quickly became shorter. He slowly slid to the ground and turned into a pile of mud. He stared at Chu Li in disbelief. No matter how weak his body was, his mind was still clear and his head was fine. Chu Li shook his head and said, There's no harm in telling you. It's all thanks to this void bracelet. He flashed the black bracelet on his wrist and smiled. You guys spent so much effort to snatch it. It is indeed a treasure. What martial art is this? Chang Luo shouted. Chu Li said, Giant Spirit Fist. Giant Spirit Fist. Chang Luo frowned and laughed strangely. I've never heard of it. It's not the martial art of your Lotus sect, nor is it the martial art of the 5 sects of Tian-Nan. Chu Li said lightly, It was a fortuitous encounter. Can I see your sect leader Zhou now? Even if you kill me, it's still impossible. Chang Luo scoffed. Chu Li frowned. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? 2K Reading Network. Chapter 40. Then let's see. Chang Luo smiled. To die for the sect leader, I have no regrets. Chu Li frowned and stared at him. Chang Luo was indeed sincere, without any hypocrisy. As the right guardian, with such a high position, most people did not respect the sect leader. After all, distance made the heart grow fonder. But Chang Luo, as the right guardian, still respected the sect leader. This was strange. It seemed that Zhou Qinglan's personal charm was amazing. Chang Luo said, Come, kill me. Chu Li frowned. I came to find your sect leader Zhou, not to fight or kill. I have something to ask. Chang Luo sneered. His body had turned into a pile of soft mud. His flesh and bones were crushed. The pain was not something an ordinary person could endure. But he did not dare to show any expression, not distracted by the pain. Chu Li was somewhat impressed. It seems that you don't believe me, then there's no harm in telling you. Chang Luo said. Chu Li said, It's about the heavenly demon. Heavenly demon? Chang Luo frowned. How do you know about the heavenly demon? Chu Li scoffed. The heavenly demon has already invaded this world, it will be the heavenly demon's world in the future. If we don't prepare, we will die without a burial place. Hee. Chang Luo shook his head and laughed. You know about the heavenly demon too, how rare. Chu Li said, since you know about the heavenly demon, you must know how terrifying they are. Why are you still indifferent? Chang Luo smiled. The heavenly demon is a thing of legend, far beyond our reach. Although the sect leader once prophesied to be careful of the heavenly demon, it's just a small chance. Chu Li said, it seems that sect leader Zhou is really unfathomable, to be able to predict the arrival of the heavenly demon. Of course, the sect leader is like a god, surpassing the gods. As for the heavenly demon, with our sect leader around, there's nothing to worry about. Chang Luo scoffed. Chu Li laughed, how arrogant. Didn't your sect leader go astray and his martial arts were crippled? Chang Luo said coldly, don't try to lie to me. Sect leader doesn't care if he goes astray or not. He has a clear understanding of the world. Chu Li said, how about this, invite the sect leader over to meet me. I can be 300 feet away, or even 1,000 feet away. If it was before, I might have considered it, but now. Chang Luo sneered, you can restrain the void lock. The void of the creation sect had always been locked. No one could shift through the void, so no matter how strong their qigong was, it was limited. But now, things were different. He had the void bracelet, and could actually break through the void lock and use void transference. This was a huge threat, and he couldn't meet the sect master. Chu Li said in a low voice, Guardian Chang, if you continue to be so stubborn, don't blame me for using force. I'll destroy your creation sect in one go and see if sect leader Zhou will come out. Sigh. A long, drawn-out sigh suddenly rang out. It traveled into Chu Li's ears and went straight into his heart. It even echoed in his mind. Chu Li's expression changed slightly. This was not because he had lost all his martial arts. The owner of this voice was stronger than him. Could it be that it was not Zhou Qinglan, but an even stronger master from the creation sect? Sovereign! Chang Luo shouted. A silver light suddenly broke through the air and landed on Chang Luo. Chang Luo's body shone brightly, and the silver light burst forth dazzlingly. Chu Li frowned. It really was Zhou Qinglan. He had originally thought that with his cultivation level, it was enough to compete with Zhou Qinglan. He did not expect her to be even stronger. Chu Li turned to look at Chang Luo. The silver light slowly faded, and Chang Luo's figure finally appeared. He was already floating in the air, standing quietly. His clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. He slowly descended and smiled calmly at Chu Li. Thank you, Sovereign. Chu Li turned his head abruptly. But there was nothing behind him. He did not even feel anything. Chang Luo smiled. Chu Li's face darkened. He knew that Zhou Qinglan must be behind him, but he could not detect her. He had not experienced this in a long time. Chang Luo chuckled. Sovereign, why tease him like this? Chu Li said coldly. Sovereign Zhou, is this how the creation sect treats its guests? Feeling this humiliation, he was inexplicably conflicted. Sigh, you killed my creation sect disciples and broke into my mountain. A faint sigh resounded from the bottom of his heart. Hearing this voice, he felt her fragility and melancholy. He felt an inexplicable sense of pity. Chu Li frowned. Just this alone was not enough to make Chang Luo worship him. He needed a deeper charm. He was becoming more curious about Zhou Qinglan. Chu Li said in a low voice, the creation sect has some demonic characteristics. They are cold-blooded and ruthless, killing people like slaughtering chickens. Even women and children are not spared. Chang Luo shouted, the sovereign did not know about this. I acted on my own. Jingru, don't accuse the sovereign unjustly. Chu Li chuckled. Chang Luo's face darkened. He glared at him. What are you laughing at? Chu Li shook his head. As the sovereign, You did not know about such a big matter. Those people were your creation sect's sacrificial warriors, right? The sovereign was in isolation. Of course he did not know. Chang Luo shouted. But I have a clear conscience. This void bracelet was originally ours. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Chang Luo sneered. That floating cloud stronghold dared to rob us of our treasures. They really deserve to die. They deserve 10,000 deaths. Chu Li frowned. Those babies are not guilty. They can only blame themselves for being the children of sinners. This is how the world works. Chang Luo scoffed. Is there any fairness? They are destined to be enemies of our creation sect. Are we going to let them grow up and cause trouble for us? Your Lotus sect is known as an orthodox sect. You are kind and benevolent. You would not do such a thing, right? Chu Li shook his head. Our Lotus sect will not do such a thing. Even if they grow up and come for revenge, they will not do such a thing. Heh! Chang Luo sneered. He obviously did not believe him. Chu Li said, Our Lotus sect has a bottom line. A bottom line of human nature. Without this bottom line, even if your martial arts are strong, what use is it? What a joke! Chang Luo shook his head. Sovereign, it is better to kill him. He dares to come here and talk nonsense. Sigh, what he said makes sense. A faint sigh sounded again. Guardian Chang, this time you are wrong. Yes, Sovereign. Chang Luo nodded respectfully. Zhou Qinglan said softly, Since you are wrong, then your punishment is to be relieved of your position as a guardian. Become a normal disciple again. Yes. Chang Luo did not hesitate. Chu Li frowned and stared at Chang Luo. He wanted to know what Chang Luo was thinking and whether he really had no complaints. However, Chang Luo's expression showed that he was willing and unconvinced. He carefully observed Chang Luo's every expression. It could only be said that he was stubborn and unrepentant. There was no cure. Jingru, now it is time to talk about our matter. Zhou Qinglan said. Why are you looking for me? Chu Li said, Does Sovereign Zhou know about the heavenly demon? The heavenly demon is not our business. It is the enlightened master's concern. Zhou Qinglan said. The human heart is not as scary as the heavenly demon. Chu Li frowned. Sovereign Zhou is wrong. The heavenly demon is beyond imagination. The heavenly demon was originally a human. Zhou Qinglan said. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 40-41. The heavenly demon is human but also not human. Chu Li shook his head. Just like Buddha is human but also not human, you can't generalize them. What do you have in mind? Zhou Qinglan's voice was nonchalant. Chu Li said, I think most of the heavenly demons come from the 5 sects. Zhou Qinglan was still nonchalant. Chu Li frowned. Does sect leader Zhou know? It's nothing surprising. Zhou Qinglan said, The 5 sects have the highest requirements for their disciples. If you want to become a heavenly demon, you can't do it without sufficient qualifications. Chu Li said, Then does sect leader Zhou have any way to restrain it? Are we just going to let the heavenly demons wreak havoc and increase in numbers? We can't defeat the heavenly demons, Zhou Qinglan said. Chu Li scoffed. That's not something a sect leader should say, right? You know about the heavenly demons, so I won't lie to you. Zhou Qinglan's voice was heard. As they talked, Chu Li felt like he was talking to an old friend. There was no sense of unfamiliarity or hostility. Chu Li said, Sect leader Zhou, I have a way to destroy the heavenly demons. Light laughter was heard. Chu Li's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. His soul actually shook. He was shocked. This was a type of charm technique. He would never believe that a woman's charm could reach this level. It must be a combination of secret techniques and talent. Her charm technique had reached the formless realm. It must have been cultivated to the highest level and was impossible to guard against. He suddenly realized why Chang Luo worshipped her so much. It was caused by the charm technique. Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan said, "From what I know, human martial arts cannot kill the heavenly demons, just like how human martial arts cannot kill Buddha." Chu Li shook his head. "It's a martial art that I obtained through a fortuitous encounter. It's not a human martial art from this world." "Oh, I see," Zhou Qinglan said faintly. Chu Li felt a sense of ecstasy and was secretly impressed by the power of her charm technique. He became even more cautious. The more easily she could seduce someone, the more it showed that her heart was cold and ruthless. From the first heaven until here, he had seen too many charm techniques. If a woman who practiced seduction didn't have an ice-cold heart, it would be extremely difficult for her to succeed. Moreover, the moment her heart was moved was the moment she would break through. On the other hand, women who practiced seduction techniques would almost never be tempted. They could see through people's hearts and knew how sinister and ugly they were. When they looked at others, it was like they were looking at an ugly bug. How could they be tempted? Chu Li asked, "Sect leader Zhou, are you still not going to meet me?" "Let's forget about it this time," Zhou Qinglan said. "It's really not convenient for me to see you. Next time, come back in a month. By then, my martial arts will have mostly recovered." Chu Li replied coldly, "Sect leader Zhou." He felt that Zhou Qinglan was playing with people's hearts. With her current ability to be silent, how could she be afraid of his sneak attack? "That's all. Goodbye." Zhou Qinglan's voice gradually faded into the distance. Chu Li suddenly felt his body lighten. Then, the scenery in front of him changed, and he found himself at the foot of the mountain. He had been transported through the void. Chu Li's face darkened. He lifted his head and stared intently at the creation sect. This time, he had suffered a great setback. His original arrogance had dissipated, and he had to continue working hard. Chu Li turned around and strode away. Chang Luo hurriedly said, "Sect leader, are you letting him go just like that?" His face was full of unwillingness. This Jingru was a scourge. His martial arts was too strong, and he had a deep enmity towards the creation sect. Many creation sect disciples would die in his hands. If Chang Luo was the sect leader, he would definitely think of a way to kill him. "I won't be able to keep him." A faint voice rang out. "My martial arts have not been perfected, let's keep him for a while." "Yes, sect leader." Chang Luo hurriedly nodded. "It's my fault for disturbing the sect leader. I didn't expect him to be so difficult to deal with." Zhou Qinglan said, "How could I not know after such a big commotion? Ask around for news about him." "Yes." Chang Luo hurriedly said, "Sect leader, what about the void bracelet?" "The void bracelet is very important to me." Zhou Qinglan lightly said, "Song Jun is useless, he actually lost it. He really deserves to die." Chang Luo fiercely nodded. "He really is a mediocre person, we must punish him properly. There's nothing wrong with his mentality, it's just that he's useless, so we can't punish him too much." Zhou Qinglan said, "Just demote him by one level." "Sect leader." Chang Luo felt that something was wrong. Song Jun had committed such a grave mistake, yet he was only punished by one level. It was really a light punishment, too lenient. If this went on, what would happen if the disciples did not do their best? Those who do their best, even if they messed up, can be forgiven, but not heavily punished. Zhou Qinglan softly said, "And those who do not do their best, even if it's a small mistake, will be heavily punished." "I understand." Chang Luo nodded vigorously. This was what he most admired about the sect leader. Everything had to be done from the heart. If the heart was not upright, even if it was a small mistake, it would still be heavily punished. If the heart was upright, even if it was a big mistake, it would not be heavily punished. This was very difficult to achieve. After all, the human heart was hard to fathom, and the human heart was separated by a layer of skin. However, the sect leader was amazing because he could see through the human heart. All the disciples in the sect were in awe and obediently accepted their punishment. "Sect leader, Do you want to use some means to snatch the void bracelet back? Chang Luo asked. You won't be able to snatch it back. He's too strong. Zhou Qinglan said softly, It's better for me to do it myself. You just have to find out about him. Yes. Chang Luo said, I will send all the disciples to find out everything about him, including what he eats every day. Go. Zhou Qinglan said, Tomorrow, you will no longer be a guardian. Make arrangements today, you will be punished for a year. Yes. Chang Luo closed fist saluted, turned around and left in high spirit. Chu Li had already returned to his courtyard. Jingxue had returned long ago. Seeing him return, she could not help but sigh in relief. She felt that the creation sect could not kill him, but she was still worried. However, seeing his calm expression, it was obvious that he had something on his mind, so she sat opposite him. Chu Li shook his head. I underestimated the creation sect, their strength is shocking. No matter how strong they are, they can't be stronger than the enlightened master clan, right? Jingxue said. Chu Li smiled. That's true. He took a deep breath. The key is that Zhou Qinglan, she is unfathomable, I am no match for her. No way. Jingxue was completely shocked. In her opinion, no one in the world was stronger than his martial arts. He was already unimaginably strong, not to mention the miraculous azure cloud divine sword. Chu Li shook his head. Her martial arts is very strange and even more terrifying. Once the charm technique was mastered, it could stir up the world, and was far more terrifying than martial arts. Since ancient times, seduction had always been successful. Jingxue asked, Senior brother, do you have any ideas? Chu Li shook his head. I'm not afraid, but I'm afraid that others are no match for her. She can manipulate people's hearts, and she has always been successful. Jingxue pondered. Then let the disciples cultivate something that can calm their minds. Chu Li said, It's useless. Ordinary charm techniques were feasible, but he was determined. Even with the Great Light Buddha and Mahavairokkana Buddha suppressing his mind, he was still slightly tempted. Chapter 40-42. Jingxue thought about it and smiled. Actually, you don't need to worry about this, senior brother. The enlightened masters should be more concerned. Chu Li shook his head. What does this have to do with the enlightened masters? Jingxue said, If you run into trouble and cannot focus on dealing with heavenly demons, the enlightened masters will suffer losses. Chu Li frowned. We can't let the enlightened masters help us all the time. He was now in the same boat with the enlightened masters. If he ran into trouble, the enlightened masters would worry. On the other hand, he did not need to care when the enlightened masters were in trouble. This put the humans in an advantageous position. That's true, Jingxue said, but the enlightened masters have so many secret techniques. It shouldn't be hard for them to find one that can restrain them, right? Chu Li shook his head. Never mind, I'll do it myself. I should go into seclusion again. Meeting Zhou Qinglan this time had been a huge blow to him. He was not invincible. He needed to cultivate harder or someone would catch up to him sooner or later. Moreover, he might not be Zhou Qinglan's match now. Even if he could beat her, he would be at a disadvantage against her. He would be restrained. Jingxue nodded. Senior brother, it's better to go into seclusion so that you don't have to worry about mundane matters. It's not worth mentioning to you. Chu Li smiled. At this moment there was a knock on the door. Chu Li waved his hand and the courtyard door opened. Su Xian floated in lightly. The lotus seat carried her to the two Masters Jr. Chu Li and Jingxue closed fist saluted. Su Xian waved her hand, bringing with her a faint fragrance. She sighed. There's trouble again. Jingxue looked at the exquisite invitation in her hand and said in surprise, Did someone with ill intentions come to visit? More or less. Su Xian flicked her finger. The exquisite invitation floated to Chu Li. Chu Li took it and scanned it. He frowned. An invitation to a banquet. The imperial school, One of the 5 sects of Tiannan? He handed it to Jingxue. Jingxue took it and read it carefully. She nodded. There's a forceful tone in the words. It seems certain that we will go, and there's an order. Masters Junior, has the Imperial School always been so overbearing? Yes. Su Xian nodded. Of the 5 sects of Tiannan, the Imperial School is first. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. He knew of the 5 sects of Tiannan, but he did not know that the Creation sect was said to be the number 1 sect in the Imperial territory. Su Xian said, 100 years ago, Yuji Gate suddenly announced its closure. All the disciples returned to the mountain gate and didn't come out for 100 years. Could it be to hide from Empyrean gods? Jingxue snorted and said, to avoid the limelight. No. She then shook her head lightly. They should know that when the nest is overturned, there will be no unbroken eggs. Could it be that there is internal strife? Neither, Su Xian said. Chu Li pondered. Could it be that they discovered some kind of secret skill, so all the disciples in the gate cultivated it together, and after increasing their strength, they now have the strength to unify the 5 sects of Tiannan South? Exactly. Su Xian slowly nodded, her expression solemn. Actually, the Imperial Extreme sect has always had the idea of unifying the 5 sects of South Heaven. Are they that strong? Jingxue asked. Perhaps they were once glorious and unified the 5 sects. No. Su Xian shook her head lightly. The Imperial Extreme School has always been the strongest. Everyone knows that their dream is to unify the 5 sects and conquer the world. Unfortunately, the spirit is willing, but the strength is insufficient. Chu Li smiled and said, but they suddenly obtained an extraordinary secret skill. They were afraid that the news would leak, so they closed their doors and cultivated for 100 years. After their strength greatly increased, they wanted to fulfill their long-cherished wish. Su Xian said, that is what we speculated. Jingxue laughed softly and said, unfortunately, they do not know that times change. Nothing stays the same. The 5 sects of South Heaven are no longer the 5 sects of South Heaven. No matter what, the Imperial Extreme School's strength is extremely strong. Su Xian frowned and said, but they closed their doors for 100 years, causing the other 4 sects to have a lot of complaints. Back then, when the enlightened gods revolted, it was always the 4 sects that held the fort. Then, should we send someone to attend the banquet? Jingxue asked. Su Xian shook her head lightly. The sect leader has decided not to send anyone. The Lotus sect is not a subordinate of the Imperial Extreme School. There is no need to listen to their orders. That's right. Jingxue scoffed and said, do we have to go just because they tell us to? It's too arrogant of them to send such an invitation. They don't take us seriously at all. With the Imperial Extreme School's temper, they will definitely revolt. Su Xian said, so trouble will come knocking. Jingxue, you have to be on guard. We have to let senior brother make a move? Jingxue asked. Su Xian said, Jingxue, your reputation is getting bigger and bigger. All the sects know that if they want to defeat the Lotus sect, they must first defeat you, Jingxue. So, they will find senior brother? Kill senior brother to establish their prestige, and even kill for the other 3 sects to see, for all the sects in the martial arts world to see, right? Jingxue's jade face unknowingly turned cold, and her voice was chilly. Su Xian nodded and said, there is an 80% chance that they will do so. Chu Li smiled and said, then, it will depend on each person's ability. It seems that the mystical technique they cultivate is no small matter. I would like to see it for myself. Su Xian shook her head and said, according to our understanding of the Imperial Extreme School, they will definitely use us against them. They want to use us to establish their prestige. Why don't we do the same? Chu Li smiled and said, if we can suppress the Imperial Extreme School, the Lotus sect can save a lot of trouble from now on. That's true. Su Xian smiled and said, it's best that you think this way. Jingxue, you are going to be busy again. Jingshue's mind illumination could predict misfortune. In front of people, it was the most powerful weapon outside of martial arts. If she joined hands with Chuli, the Lotus Sect disciples would be absolutely safe. With the two of them here, the Lotus Sect disciples were full of confidence. In the next 10 days, Chuli kept thinking about how to get in touch with Zhou Qinglan and figure out her charm technique and light body technique again. Unfortunately, Zhou Qinglan would not give him such a chance. However, the matter of the Imperial Extreme School could be used. This morning, it was already far past the time stated on the invitation, but the Imperial Extreme School still had no reaction. It was as if they did not go and did not care. Chuli simply did not think about it. The next moment, he arrived at God of Heaven Mountain and directly entered the Sutra Tower. He began to flip through the books and immersed himself in the sea of books and wisdom. The collection of books in the Sutra Tower was too rich. Even with Chu Li's reading speed, reading books as if flipping through books, it would still take a long time to finish reading all of these books. Not only did he not feel fear, but he was also extremely excited. It was as if a sumptuous feast was placed in front of him when he was extremely hungry. There were hundreds of feasts. Those who were not hungry would only be frightened when they saw it, feeling that they could not bear it. However, those who were extremely hungry would feel delighted and extremely happy. In one breath, he stayed in the Sutra Tower for 10 days. In the early morning of this day, he suddenly felt something strange, so he returned to his own courtyard in the Lotus Sect in a flash. Jingxue was waiting there. She wore a snow-white gown and had a graceful bearing. She was like a blooming lotus, quietly swaying in the wind with a radiant appearance. When Chuli appeared, she came to greet him and said softly, "Senior brother, people from the Imperial Extreme School have come." They finally came. Chuli smiled and said, "How is it?" "They came to question and punish." Jingxue shook her head lightly. Chuli frowned. "Punishment? Who do they think they are in the Lotus Sect? Those who do not follow their orders will be punished." Jingxue said, "They said that this is the rule of the Imperial Extreme School. Then what about the rules of our Lotus Sect?" Chuli smiled and a lotus seat condensed under his feet, carrying him out of the courtyard. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 40-43. The two arrived in front of a large hall. It was a spacious square. At this moment, there were 3 men in black clothes standing in the square. 2 young men were guarding a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man had handsome eyebrows and bright eyes. 3 strands of beard floated below his chin. His temperament was clear and distant like an immortal, untainted by worldly affairs. Opposite him was Su Xian, who was quietly looking at the 3 people in front of her. The handsome middle-aged man stroked his beard and said indifferently, "Lady Su Xian, the Lotus Flower Sect is not what it used to be. It is already famous in the world and is faintly the #1 sect among the 5 sects in South Heaven. Hero Su is too polite." Su Xian said indifferently, "Our Lotus Flower Sect is still the Lotus Flower Sect of the past. How can our strength suddenly increase so much? It's not like your Imperial Extreme School is blessed with great luck and obtained a mysterious technique to cultivate in seclusion." "Ha ha!" The handsome middle-aged man Su Jingxing laughed loudly and said clearly, "The Lotus Flower Sect is still so well informed. I won't hide it from Lady Su Xian. Our Imperial Extreme School has indeed cultivated a new secret technique." "What secret technique is it?" Su Xian smiled elegantly. The Lotus Flower Sect's strength had indeed increased greatly. Especially after obtaining those snow-silver flowers, their overall strength had rapidly increased by a large margin, far surpassing the past. This was the peak of the Lotus Flower Sect. In addition, with Jingru, Jingxue, and the other top experts, they truly had nothing to fear. Thus, they were very confident in facing the Imperial Extreme School. Su Jingxing's hand that was stroking his beard paused, and he frowned slightly. According to his prediction, Su Xian should be very serious and curious when she heard the news that the Imperial Extreme School had cultivated in seclusion for 100 years and cultivated a secret technique. But looking at Su Xian's attitude, there was no seriousness or curiosity at all. It was as if it was an ordinary matter. This attitude showed that the Lotus Flower sect was very confident, even to the point of arrogance. They felt that no matter what secret technique the Imperial Extreme School cultivated, they would not be able to pose a threat. This made Su Jingxing extremely dissatisfied. Among the 5 sects in South Heaven, the Imperial Extreme School was number 1. This had always been the tradition. It was not some bullshit creation sect or the newly rising Lotus Flower sect. People were too forgetful. In just 100 years, people had already forgotten the glory of the Imperial Extreme School and their reverence for the Imperial Extreme School. As one of the Imperial Extreme School's 5-element guard, he could not maintain the dignity of the Imperial Extreme School. Today was the first step of establishing his authority. Thinking of this, he shouted in a deep voice, "Pure Een Saber." Seeing that Su Xian was still looking at him indifferently, Su Jingxing said coldly, "Miss Su Xian, you haven't heard of the Pure Een Saber, right?" "I've never heard of it. It must be a powerful secret technique." Su Xian nodded. She was dressed in a bluish-white gown that fluttered in the wind. It was as if she could fly away with the wind at any time and float into the sky. She did not look like a human being. Although Su Jingxing, who was sitting opposite her, was a little older, his temperament was clear and distant. When the two of them stood together, they were like a pair of immortals talking, not tainted by vulgarity. However, their words were not so peaceful. Su Xian showed her disdain without any hesitation. She wanted to suppress the arrogance of the Extreme Defense School. The 5 sects of the South Heaven sect were disgusted with the Imperial Extreme School. However, they were previously intimidated by the might of the Imperial Extreme School, so they could only forcefully endure their unhappiness. Later on, when the deities invaded, the Imperial Extreme sect instead shut themselves up and refused to come out. Not only did they not contribute, they even retreated. They had already seriously lost the hearts of the people of the martial arts world in Heavenly South, and they felt disdain towards them. In addition, under the oppression of the deities, the other 4 sects of the South Heaven sect had their strength increase by leaps and bounds. They were no longer the 4 sects of the South Heaven sect of the past, and the Imperial Extreme School even came out to act like the leader. Su Jingxing's expression was gloomy, and he said slowly, "Pure Een Blade slaying 3 souls." Su Xian frowned and said, 3 souls? Directly killing souls? That's right. Su Jingxing said in a deep voice. Back then, Su Jinyang, one of the 5 elemental guards, obtained this secret technique and immediately offered it to the sect, allowing everyone to quickly comprehend it. This is a mystical technique that can restrain the deities. Deities? Su Xian shook her head and said, "Hero Su, the situation of the world is different from before. The deities are no longer enemies of us humans." He. Su Jingxing laughed and said, "How can wolves not eat sheep? Even if they don't eat it now, they will eat it in the future." "Then what does the Imperial Extreme School want to do?" Su Xian said. Su Jingxing said, "Lead the 5 sects of the South Heaven sect and chase the deities out of this world. We humans will have a bright world. Then let the Imperial Extreme School become the supreme and rule over all the sects in the world?" Su Xian smiled faintly, and the corners of her mouth curled up to reveal a hint of mockery. Su Jingxing said in a deep voice, "Chasing away the deities is such a great achievement, can't it convince the masses? Do the sects still have any questions?" Su Xian said, "The masses will not fight against the deities with the Imperial Extreme School, nor will we listen to the orders of the Imperial Extreme School. The world now is not the world of the past. The Imperial Extreme School should also wake up and stop dreaming, Hero Su. Her expression was calm, her voice was gentle, and her attitude was sincere. Every word she said was sincere, and there was not a trace of mockery in her tone. Su Jingxing's expression was gloomy, and he shouted in a deep voice, "The world changed in 100 years? The Imperial Extreme School used to be the #1 sect in the South Heaven sect, and it is still the #1 sect in the South Heaven sect now." Su Exan shook her head lightly and said, "Hero Su, the #1 sect in the South Heaven sect now is the Creation sect." "Heh, not the Lotus sect?" Su Jingxing sneered. Su Exan shook her head seriously. "Our Lotus sect has made great progress, but the sects in the South Heaven sect have all advanced by leaps and bounds. The true #1 sect is still the Creation sect." "Miss Su Exan, you're really modest. I really admire you," Su Jingxing said in a deep voice. "However, the Lotus sect doesn't listen to orders, so don't blame us for being ruthless. Hero Su, the Lotus sect is not the subordinate of the Imperial Extreme School. Why should we listen to your orders?" Su Exan said calmly, "This is the Imperial Extreme School's unreasonable provocation. Forgive me for not playing along. Whether it's unreasonable or not still depends on the strength," Su Jingxing said proudly. "Then show us our moon plane blade." He turned his head and glanced at the two young men. The two young men nodded slowly. Su Jingxing said, "Miss Su Exan, I heard that the #1 master of the Lotus sect is Jingru, a junior who has just entered the sect." "I am Jingru." Chu Li took a step into the field and stood beside Su Exan. He closed fist saluted and said, "Greetings to the 3 seniors of the Imperial Extreme School." Even though the two young men didn't look old, their auras had been through the vicissitudes of life. They were definitely not young people. "Hee, you are that Jingru?" Su Jingxing looked him up and down. Chu Li's aura suddenly exuded and no longer restrained it. Suddenly, it was as if a towering giant mountain had suddenly risen and pierced the clouds in front of their eyes, forming an imposing manner that could suppress heaven and earth. The expressions of Su Jingxing and the other two changed greatly. They had already overestimated Chu Li's cultivation level. The #1 master of the Lotus sect would definitely not be mediocre, but no matter how much they overestimated him, they didn't think it would be like this. The 3 of them stood in front of Chu Li, their bodies trembling. They felt as if this strange mountain was pressing down on them, and they were about to be crushed like ants. Their bodies trembled, and their bodies were drenched in sweat. Chu Li calmly looked at the 3 of them, and his aura rose again. The strange mountain that reached the sky suddenly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, it became 10 times its size. It was as if the whole world was covered and breathing became difficult. Please remember the original domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version, M. Chapter 4044. Chu Li suddenly spoke with a smile. "I'm Jingru. May I know what business do you have with me?" His voice was like thunder exploding in the trio's ears. Their ears buzzed, their minds rumbled, and their vision darkened. In the end, they were no longer able to withstand this intense shock. Their bodies suddenly went limp and their legs gave out. They fell to the ground. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. "What do you mean?" Su Exan looked at the trio, then at Chu Li. She shook her head helplessly. "Jingru, don't be so rude. They're guests from afar." Although she said that, the corner of her lips curled up. Chu Li closed fist saluted. "Yes, I've been rude." Sigh. Su Exan sighed. "I wanted to see the pure Een blade. How can I see it now that you've done this?" Chu Li apologized. "Yes, I was too impatient." Jing Shui was already standing next to Su Exan. She sized up the trio on the ground and frowned. "Masters Junior Su Exan, why are these 3 here?" "To learn from each other." Su Exan looked at the trio on the ground and shook her head. "They've just cultivated the pure Een blade. I heard it's a marvelous technique that can slay one's 3 souls." "Oh!" Chu Li was surprised. There's such a technique that can slay one's 3 souls? The power must be extraordinary. It's a pity I didn't get to see it. Su Xian shook her head. Jingru, you need to change your impatience. Yes, yes. Chu Li acted obediently. He looked at the trio on the ground and smiled. Why don't I retract my attack? As soon as he said that, the trio flew up and hovered in the air. Then, 3 lotuses appeared in the sky like 3 white clouds floating in the sky. Each of the lotuses released a beam of light that landed on each of the 3 people. The trio felt warm and comfortable. Their strength returned and surged violently as if their cultivation level was strengthened by a blessing. In the blink of an eye, they recovered their cultivation level and were more energetic than before. They looked up and saw that they were stepping on the void. A beam of light shone from the void and continuously injected energy as if it was endless. Chu Li coughed. The beam of light disappeared instantly. The 3 white lotuses in the sky also disappeared as if they were never there. Seniors, I'm sorry for offending you. Chu Li smiled and gave them a fist salute. Please forgive me. The 3 of them were shocked, but their expressions were calm. They had already adjusted their mentality and restrained their initial arrogance. They knew that they were no match for Chu Li. After witnessing Chu Li's powerful strength, they felt that they were as weak as ants in front of Chu Li. As a member of the martial arts world, strength was everything. This was a concept that had been engraved in their bones. Since Chu Li was so powerful and had far surpassed their level, he had naturally won their respect. Su Jingxing's expression was solemn as he slowly said, as expected of the Lotus Flower Sect's #1 expert, Jing Ru's name is well-deserved, admirable. You flatter me. Chu Li smiled. Su Jingxing glanced at Su Xian and said calmly, how about this? I will only make one move. Consider it a demonstration of the pure moon saber. I cannot come here for nothing. Su Xian was not in a hurry to agree. Su Jingxing seemed weak and helpless, but she did not let down her guard. These guys were all strong-willed, and would not lose their fighting spirit so easily. She turned to look at Chu Li. Chu Li nodded. Then I will take one move from you, please. The pure moon saber can injure one's soul. Su Jingxing said in a deep voice, be careful. As soon as he finished speaking, he gently waved his palm. TSS. A soft whistling sound rang in between Chu Li's eyebrows, then disappeared without a trace. Although the pure moon saber was insidious and was completely different from inner energy, it could not be defended with inner energy. However, it was nothing to Chu Li. Su Jingxing frowned and stared at Chu Li. He wanted to see the changes in Chu Li clearly, but Chu Li did not show any abnormalities and looked at him calmly. Seeing that Su Jingxing was still staring at him, Chu Li said, why don't you try 2 more moves? Don't show any mercy. Alright. Su Jingxing was secretly resentful. This was already a move that he gave his all. He respected Chu Li but would not show mercy because of this. Instead, his killing intent was burning. He wanted to finish him off with one move and sweep away the obstacle on the path of the Imperial Gate's unification. Please, Chu Li said. Su Jingxing shouted, be careful. His face suddenly turned pale. He burned his lifespan and increased the power of this move by 2 times. It was a move that he did not care about at all costs. He still held onto a glimmer of hope. If the previous move made Jing Ru underestimate him, then this move could end his life. TSS. Amidst the whistling sound, a sheep whirlwind appeared on Chu Li's forehead and swept the hair in front of his forehead. Then, everything returned to normal. Chu Li shook his head. This is the pure moon saber? Senior Su, tell me the truth. If this saber technique was used by another person, it would be useless against any top-notch master of the creation sect. Impossible! Su Jingxing shouted. Chu Li smiled and said, Senior Su, do you think I would lie to you? He faintly showed a hint of disdain. It was obvious that he did not want to lie to others, Nor did he want to lie to someone who had lost to him. Su Jingxing's heart was pierced by his smile, but he gritted his teeth and said calmly, "The creation sect can't be this strong." Chu Li said, "The martial arts that the creation sect cultivates are strange. It might not be as effective against other martial arts, but it can restrain your pure moon saber." Su Jingxing frowned. He was moved by Chu Li's words and felt that Chu Li would not lie to him. This was something that could be easily found out, and he was going to the creation sect soon. Chu Li said calmly, "Senior Su, you're going to the creation sect too, right?" "Yes," Su Jingxing said in a low voice. Chu Li said, "Then you must be careful. The creation sect is stronger than you think, even stronger than us. The last time I went, I almost couldn't escape." "Then we'll take our leave," Su Jingxing said slowly. He was also very tactful. Originally, he came to establish his dominance, but in the end, he was the one who established his dominance and was taught a harsh lesson. If he stayed any longer, he would only embarrass himself. As for the punishment, he did not even mention it. He gave a fist salute and turned to leave. Su Xian bowed lightly as a way to bid him farewell. Su Jingxing and the other two left solemnly, but they felt that they were in a sorry state. After leaving the lotus sect, they turned their heads and looked back. They could vaguely see a huge lotus vaguely appearing in the sky. Sigh. Su Jingxing's face darkened. He shook his head. It was not a good sign to have a bad start. He originally thought that the lotus sect was a soft target that was easy to bully. He did not expect that his wishful thinking would come to nothing. Instead, they were disgraced and the news would soon spread. They must regain their dignity from the creation sect. Otherwise, the Imperial Pole School would really become a joke. Not to mention unifying the 5 sects of the South Sky, it would be difficult for them to keep their original position. They had no way out. Thinking of this, Su Jingxing turned to look at the 2 people behind him and said in a low voice, "Elder Jing, go back and ask the Grand Supreme Elder to come personally." "Okay." A young man nodded lightly. "Then can Jingru's words be trusted?" "I'd rather believe her than not," Su Jingxing said in a low voice. "That's true. Let's go." The young man nodded, gave a fist salute and turned to leave. He took a step into the void and used the void diversion. Su Jingxing took a deep look at the lotus sect. Thousands of thoughts intertwined and he could not sort them out. He could only let out a long sigh, turned around, and hurriedly left. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website, M. Chapter 40-45. After they left, Su Xian glanced at Chu Li. Jingxue smiled. "Senior brother, you are helping the creation sect." Chu Li grinned and said, "The creation sect is very powerful. It's better to let the people from the Imperial faction investigate and see if they can find out more." "What do you think, senior brother?" Jingxue asked. Chu Li shook his head and frowned. He sighed. "It's difficult. But since the Imperial faction is known as the first of the 5 sects in Tianan, they must have a strong foundation and amazing strength. There must be something they haven't shown." He looked at Su Xian. "Masters Jr., if it wasn't this person who came today, I would have killed him. This plain moon blade is too sinister. It was especially effective against the Lotus Flower sect, Church of 9 Evil, and Creation sect. They were killed by the plain moon blade and could not reincarnate. To the Lotus Flower sect and the other 3 sects, they were mortal enemies that must be eliminated. They were even a great threat to the enlightened masters. This Su Jingxing has a good character." Su Xian nodded. "He is righteous and famous in the martial arts world. Unfortunately, he is a disciple of the Imperial faction. No matter how righteous Su Jingxing was, he was still thinking about the interests of the Imperial faction. If it wasn't for Jingru being strong and suppressing them, the Imperial faction would have humiliated the Lotus Flower sect. This had nothing to do with character but the interests of the sect. It was not personal feelings. Chu Li said, "The next time I meet a disciple of the imperial faction, I might kill him." "Okay, I will report to the sect leader." Su Xian nodded. Chu Li sighed. "This matter has finally come to an end. I am going to isolate myself for a while." He wanted to go to the Sutra Tower of God of Heaven Mountain to read. It was like an endless treasure waiting for him to discover. However, there were always trifling matters that prevented him from doing as he wished. Now that the matter was finally cleaned up, he could read his book in peace and contentment. Jingxue said, "I will call you if there is anything. If it is not important, I will not disturb you." "Senior brother, don't worry." Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. After a fist salute, he disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in the Sutra Tower and rooted himself inside. He did not come out. He did not even eat, drink, or sleep. He read like a madman. His body was strong. He did not need to eat, drink, or sleep without hindrance. He could last for 10 days before coming back to rest. In the evening, he came out of the Sutra Tower and returned to his courtyard. He was too lazy to move. The tower was still in his mind. A scripture pagoda had already appeared in his mind, and it was exactly the same as the one that had just appeared. Even the positions of the books were exactly the same. All the books that he had read before appeared in it. As for the books that he had not read before, their names were also there, but they were shown in gray. It would take a long time for this enormous scripture pagoda to completely fill up his mind, so he decided to peek into everything. This would greatly increase his intelligence and martial arts, an unimaginable increase. However, if he wanted to read through the entire Sutra Depository Pagoda, he needed a stable environment. He could not waste his time on mundane matters. Although he was infatuated with the Sutra Tower and was unable to extricate himself from it, he still missed Shao Qi and the others the most. Every night, he would see their shadows. Therefore, the most important thing was to deal with Zhou Qinlan. He had to suppress Zhou Qinlan until he found the method to go down to the lower realm. After that, he could ignore the changes in the world and spend time with his women. He could then slowly read through the entire scripture tower. The sunset turned the courtyard into a rose color. The god of Heaven Mountain was not covered by clouds. When he carried a box to his side, she opened the box and placed the dishes on the table. The aroma of the dishes filled Chu Li's nostrils. Chu Li's appetite was aroused and he began to eat. When Yi brought a pot of wine, she poured the wine and handed it to him. Chu Li glanced at her and took the jade cup. He took a sip and praised, "Good wine. Elder Lu sent the heavenly flower brew." When Yi said, "It's made from the essence of the sun and moon and osmanthus. It's rare." Chu Li shook his head. "I can't smell the osmanthus." "Osmanthus and osmanthus are different," when Yi said. Chu Li smiled. "So you know about osmanthus?" When Yi said, "I've seen the fragrance of osmanthus." Chu Li sized her up and asked, "Miss One, where did you learn the Ashura sword invitation?" When Yi was stunned. She shook her head. "What gray cloud sword invitation?" Chu Li smiled. "If it's any other martial art, I might be mistaken. It's definitely not the gray cloud sword invitation. I didn't expect you to hide it so well. Sir, you've misunderstood me." When Yi frowned, she looked wronged. "I really don't know about the gray cloud sword invitation." Chu Li waved his hand. "Forget it. Maybe I saw it wrong. Do you still have more of this wine?" "Yes," when Yi said. Chu Li said, "Then fill it up." When Yi poured all the wine in the pot into the jade cup, Chu Li took a sip and sighed. He seemed melancholic. He could only taste such good wine once. How could he not be melancholic? When Yi stood quietly at the side, Chu Li glanced at her occasionally. When Yi was calm and gentle. After a while, Chu Li was full. He stood up and stretched. He waved his hand. "You can go. I'll go down to digest my food. I'll enter the Sutra Tower after 10 days. Yes, Wen responded. She removed the wine cup, pot, and lunchbox. Chu Li appeared in his courtyard in a flash. The Lotus Flower sect was still peaceful. However, most of the disciples were not in the sect. They had gone out to do their own things. He summoned the disciples to return and hid for a while. Many things had been delayed. He needed to make up for it now. He needed a lot of manpower and resources. Jing Shui floated over. Chu Li glanced at the entire courtyard. His face turned solemn. Senior brother, what happened? Jing Shui landed gracefully like a startled swan. The gray cloud sword invitation is gone, Chu Li said. He left it here as a test. He felt that the Lotus Flower sect was not united. There were spies from the Church of Nine Ghosts. It was hard to guarantee that there were no spies from other sections. The disappearance of the gray cloud sword invitation proved that his guess was correct. However, he did not know which sect's spies were. It was not easy to find them. However, he had a bad feeling when he saw the faint aura of the gray cloud sword invitation on Wen Yi. Wen Yi was a divine lady. She always stayed on God of Heaven Mountain. Why did she have the aura of the gray cloud sword invitation? Moreover, it was the aura of the gray cloud sword invitation that he had leaked? The aura of the original gray cloud sword invitation was different from the one he had drawn. It was a slight difference. Others could not feel it, but he could. He had written 2 gray cloud sword invitations. One was at God of Heaven Mountain. The other was at Lotus Flower sect. Although the words were similar, they were different. Especially the aura. The gray cloud sword invitation for the 2 girls was simpler. It had lower requirements for aptitude and strength. It was similar to the simplified version of the gray cloud sword. Its power was reduced by half, but it was enough to protect himself. If he could cultivate this and the complete version of the gray cloud sword invitation, he would have a ladder to climb. The gray cloud sword invitation for God of Heaven Mountain was loyal to the original version. It was almost straight to the sky. There was no ladder to climb. It was extremely difficult. His gray cloud sword invitation was getting better and better. That was why he could write the simplified version. He could not write it for God of Heaven Mountain. Please remember the domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version, M. Chapter 40-46. The gray cloud sword invitation is not kept? Jing Shui looked at him in surprise. With how reliable and meticulous he was, it was impossible for him to make such a mistake, so he must have done it on purpose. Did he want to probe the spies in the sect? Chu Li nodded. Let me see, Jing Shui said. She closed her eyes slightly, and an eye soon appeared above her head. Then Jing Shui saw a scene. She saw someone enter his courtyard. Once someone entered the courtyard, they would trigger the formation. Because the snow silver flower and heaven lotus were growing in the courtyard, it needed to be strictly protected. Other than her and Masters Junior Su Xian, no one else could enter his courtyard. They would trigger the formation and be isolated outside. His formation was profound, so he could not break it even if he wanted to. However, what she saw was a young man floating into the small courtyard. The courtyard only flashed for a moment, and then nothing happened. He actually entered easily, and then came out with the azure cloud sword scroll, disappearing into the forest as if he was as light as a feather. She wanted to continue watching, but she could not see clearly. An invisible force blocked her prying. Who is it? Chu Li asked calmly. Jing Shui opened her eyes, her gaze complicated. It's senior brother Jing Ming. Jing Ming. Chu Li thought for a moment and shook his head. It's him. Senior brother Jing Ming was silent. The Jing generation disciples were almost unknown. After all, they entered the sect too late and had too little time to cultivate, unless they were rare geniuses like Chu Li and Jing Shui. For most people, no matter how talented they were, they needed time to accumulate and grow. Any disciple who could enter the Lotus sect was a genius, and Jing Ming was the same. He cultivated diligently and almost always cultivated. He rarely showed himself. You didn't expect this, did you? Jing Shui sighed. I really misjudged him. I didn't expect him to be a disciple of the Jing generation. I thought he was of a higher generation. Chu Li asked, Where is he now? He left. Jing Shui frowned. And I can't find out where he is. Let's go to Honorable Master Xian Qing. Let's go. Chu Li nodded. The two stepped to the front of the basilica. After entering, Xian Qing was meditating on the cattail hassock as if she was one with the basilica. She opened her eyes slowly and glanced at the two. Granduncle Master, I would like to see Senior Brother Jingming's life tablet, said Jing Shui. Ding! Xian Qing flicked her finger, and a jade tablet on the wall emitted a crisp sound. It flew to Jing Shui, and she reached out to take it. Jing Shui held the jade tag in her hand and frowned. She turned to look at Chu Li. Chu Li asked, He's not dead? No, Jing Shui said, but I can't sense it. It seems to be trapped somewhere. Chu Li extended his hand. Jing Shui handed over the jade token. Chu Li held the plate and sensed it for a moment. Suddenly, a vertical eye appeared between his brows and slowly opened before a beam of golden light shot out. A black hole appeared in the void and gradually transformed into a silver mirror. Jing Ming's figure appeared in the mirror. He was meditating in a cave, and there was a calligraphy scroll hanging on the stone wall opposite him. It was Chu Li's Azure Cloud Sword scroll, but there were a few people around him. There were both men and women. The men were handsome, and the women were beautiful. They sat on cattail hassocks and looked at the Azure Cloud Sword scroll in silence. Their gazes were fiery and they looked devout as if they were looking at a treasure. Chu Li frowned and glanced at the Azure Cloud Sword scroll. It was indeed his handwriting, but why couldn't he sense it? He understood after a moment. He had written the scroll himself, but it was not his own handwriting. Someone had copied it and made a rubbing. There was something strange about this. The Azure Cloud Sword scroll he had written contained shocking power. Anyone who wanted to copy these words would be attacked by the power of the Azure Cloud Divine Sword. Regardless of whether it was someone with profound martial arts skills or an ordinary person who did not know martial arts, it was impossible to copy these 16 characters. However, this book of calligraphy was clearly copied. There was only one possibility. Chu Li's expression turned solemn when he thought of this. There was only one possibility, and that was that it was copied by an expert whose martial arts and spiritual cultivation were stronger than his own. The charm of the scroll was far from enough, and it was impossible to comprehend the Azure Cloud Divine Sword with this. It was only a small part of the Azure Cloud Divine Sword. However, there was a great advantage to this. The difficulty was reduced. Even if the final Azure Cloud Divine Sword was incomparable to the real Azure Cloud Divine Sword, it could still be cultivated. Even a small part of the Azure Cloud Divine Sword was shockingly powerful. Once these youths comprehended the scroll and cultivated the simplified version of the Azure Cloud Divine Sword, they would become a shocking force. The Lotus Sect, Ninth Ghost Cult, and Creation Sect would not be spared. Their disciples would not be able to reincarnate. Their souls would dissipate and they would die. Chu Li frowned when he thought of this. Suddenly, his eyebrows twitched. He then saw the scroll spontaneously combusting and turning into a fireball. The flames were fierce and swift. In just a moment, it had burned until nothing was left. The 6 men and women who were sitting on cattail hassocks were shocked. It was not just this scroll. All the other scrolls related to the Azure Cloud Divine Sword burned and returned to the void. This was the power of the Azure Cloud Divine Sword. Everyone who was comprehending the Azure Cloud Divine Sword realized that the Azure Cloud Sword scroll had turned into flames. Chu Li let out a sigh of relief. He had already discovered that the Azure Cloud Sword post had already been spread far and wide. There were at least 30 people comprehending the sword post. Fortunately, no one succeeded. From now on, no one would succeed. he decided not to write more sword scrolls. Only the one on God of Heaven Mountain existed. Jingxue asked, "Senior brother, did you find him?" "He probably won't come back." Chu Li sighed. "He is indeed a spy. He should be from the Creation Sect." "The Creation Sect." Jingxue bit her red lips. Xian Qing scoffed. "We must be wary of the Creation Sect. The inheritance of the Creation Sect has always been a mystery. I heard that they have more than one inheritance." Chu Li nodded and closed fist saluted. "Master's granduncle, sorry to disturb you." "Go," Xian Qing said. "Jingxue, stay." Chu Li left the basilica and appeared on God of Heaven Mountain. He sat lazily in his courtyard. When he came in quietly and served tea, he respectfully retreated and was about to leave. Chu Li asked, "Where did you see the sword scroll?" When he froze, he turned around and said helplessly, "Sir, tell me about it." Chu Li smiled. When he lowered her head and said softly, "I saw it when you were writing, so I secretly studied it." Chu Li raised his eyebrows. "You secretly studied it after a glance?" Wen Yi nodded. "Please forgive me, sir." Chu Li sighed. As expected of a heavenly lady, her aptitude was shocking. Although she was not as good as him, she was better than most enlightened masters. They did not have such high comprehension. When he lowered her head in embarrassment, Chu Li pondered. "You want to learn this sword technique?" "Yes." Wen Yi said, "If I can cultivate this sword technique, I can protect myself." Chu Li looked at her and shook his head. "You can't cultivate this sword technique. Don't waste your effort." Wen Yi looked confused. Chu Li said, "The Azure Cloud Divine Sword is purely about aptitude. If you don't have enough aptitude, you'll only hurt yourself if you forcefully cultivate it." P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Fastest website for mobile version, M. Chapter 40-47. Wen Yi remained calm and gentle, but Chu Li knew that she was not convinced. It was obvious that she had absolute confidence in her own qualities. These divine ladies were very strict in their selection. It was impossible to become a divine lady without such qualities, no matter how beautiful they were or how kind they were. Although the divine ladies ranked third in terms of qualities, it was an iron threshold. Without such qualities, no matter how beautiful they were or how kind they could not become divine ladies. There were only a few women in the world who had all three qualities, and they were extremely rare. The fact that they could stand out and become divine ladies showed how proud they were. They had met enlightened masters on God of Heaven Mountain. Their talents were beyond imagination, and they were also shockingly handsome. Naturally, they were not arrogant, only humble. However, the pride in their bones could not be erased. "You don't believe me, do you?" Ling Fei shook his head and smiled. "You think that it's because you didn't have the chance to cultivate it?" Wen Yi nodded. She knew that Chu Li was gentle and different from the other enlightened masters, so she spoke boldly and said whatever was on her mind. Chu Li asked, "Do all of you divine ladies think the same way?" Wen Yi fell silent. She could represent herself but not all the divine ladies. If they suddenly turned against each other, she would be in trouble, but it would not be appropriate to implicate others. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. The Azure Cloud Sword requires a unique power, which is born from nature and not acquired. Wen Yi frowned. "Are we really not allowed to cultivate it?" Chu Li shook his head. "Then forget it," Wen Yi said. "We're just unlucky." Chu Li smiled. "But it's not like we can't change." Wen Yi was excited. Chu Li said, "I have a way to improve your strength step by step, but it'll take a long time. I'm not sure if you have the patience." "How long will it take?" Wen Yi asked. Chu Li replied, "It depends on each person's qualities, effort, and fate. It'll take at least 1,000 years. 1,000 years. Wen Yi muttered. 1,000 years was indeed too long, but compared to the power of the Azure Cloud Sword, it was acceptable. She nodded. "Young master, Please teach us the azure cloud sword. Chu Li smiled. I'll have to hide this from the others. You know how powerful the azure cloud sword is, especially to enlightened masters. Yes. Wen Yi nodded gently but firmly. Chu Li stretched out his hand. Serve me the brush and ink. Wen Yi quickly ground the ink and presented the best cloud paper. The paper was as soft as silk, and there seemed to be white clouds floating on the paper. This cloud paper was difficult to damage with blades and swords, so it could be considered a treasure. Every single heavenly deity had a portion of it, using it to record content that was worth eternally passing down. Chu Li picked up the pen and began to write. After writing a total of 16 words, he gently put the pen back and smiled as he looked at it. He nodded in satisfaction. All right, take this and try to figure it out. Chu Li looked at Wen Yi. You can also let them practice together. I only have one small request. Young master, please speak. Wen Yi said softly. Chu Li said, You're only allowed to use it to protect yourself. You're not allowed to use it against enlightened masters. Yes. Wen Yi said solemnly, I will make them swear before they can comprehend it. Chu Li waved his hand in satisfaction. Go then. I'm going to the Sutra Tower. Call me back after 10 days. Yes. Wen Yi nodded. Chu Li turned around and headed to the Sutra Library. Wen Yi watched him leave, then carefully picked up the cloud paper. This was their supreme treasure. Once they successfully cultivated it, it would become their foundation. Even if the enlightened masters wanted to abandon them, they would not be afraid. She looked at Chu Li, who was walking away, and did not know why he did this. Was he just sympathizing with the Divine Lady's fate, or did he have other intentions? Nonetheless, it did not matter. As long as this Azure Cloud Divine Sword scroll was real and had real power, they did not care what other intentions they had. Chu Li strolled and entered the Sutra Tower. He buried his head in the books and tried his best to memorize them. He did not care about shocking the world anymore. He flipped through the books like the wind. The pages turned into shadows and were flipped through in an instant. Chu Li did not think about it. He directly imprinted them into his mind and filled up the Sutra Tower in his mind. One after another, the books became clear. They changed from gray to vivid colors and could be read. 10 days later, he arrived at the top floor of the Sutra Tower. A gentle force firmly blocked him. Chu Li frowned and activated the energy in his body, but he could not do anything to this force. In the end, he even activated the Azure Cloud Divine Sword's power in his mind. It was still useless. This gentle force seemed to come from heaven and earth. It could not be broken no matter what. Just as he was fighting against this force, Lu Xuanji suddenly appeared beside him. It's useless. Lu Xuanji shook his head. Jingru, this floor is formed by the Sutra Tower itself. We could not enter it. Chu Li asked, This Sutra Tower itself is a treasure. Of course. Lu Xuanji nodded and said proudly, Otherwise, how could these books be so complete and sturdy? Chu Li pondered. You cannot control this treasure? Not completely. Lu Xuanji said, However, we have already grasped the majority of it. Even if this is already enough, with it, our inheritance will not be severed. Even if the heavenly deity no longer exists in this world, there will still be seeds of the heavenly deity. Enlightened Master's seeds. Chu Li shook his head. Lu Xuanji sighed. I can't hide it from you. We enlightened masters are born and cannot be inherited. But with these books, it can be considered a kind of inheritance. Chu Li said, Elder Lu's words do not sound auspicious. Lu Xuanji shook his head and smiled. Everything has its birth and death. It is the same for us enlightened masters. Although the enlightened masters are still very strong and there are no signs of death, they cannot live forever. Chu Li smiled. We live as long as the heavens and earth. Unless the heavens and earth die, there is no other way. Yes. Lu Xuanji sighed. I am afraid that the heavens and earth will also die. Jingru, you humans seem to be quite lively these days. I have made a fool of myself in front of you. Chu Li shook his head and smiled bitterly. The 5 sects of Tiannan are in a mess. I am afraid that the North will not stop either. Once the pressure from the enlightened masters is gone, they can no longer sit still and want to take advantage of the situation. This may not be without the heavenly demon's shadow, Lu Xuanji said solemnly. Chu Li nodded. Actually, I think this is also an opportunity for you, Lu Xuanji said. You can take this opportunity to unify the world. It is also a blessing. Chu Li shook his head. My martial arts is not invincible. Lu Xuanji could not help but laugh. Chu Li said, Elder, you have underestimated humans. Like the Imperial Gate and the Creation Sect, they are unfathomable. It is just that the enlightened masters did not touch their bottom line and did not use their trump card. They are not as honest as us, the Lotus Sect. If that's the case, Lu Xuanji smiled, then all the more you want to unify the world. Isn't it interesting to have a challenge? We can also help you. Chu Li looked at him. Lu Xuanji smiled. Once you unify the world, we will get along more peacefully. There is no other intention but to defend against the heavenly demon. Chu Li shook his head. I do not have such ambitions. I only want to protect my sect and friends. Chapter 40-48. Lu Xuanji stared at him as if trying to see through him. Chu Li smiled and looked back. Lu Xuanji shook his head. Looks like you still don't believe us. Chu Li asked, Elder Lu, this sutra tower is so mysterious, where did it come from? We found this tower out of nowhere, Lu Xuanji frowned. It's been so many years and we still haven't been able to fully understand it. It's one of the most interesting targets for us enlightened masters. The enlightened masters had lived for so long that they were numb to the stimulation of the outside world and everything was tasteless. In order to experience the beauty of life and the beauty of the world, they had a wide range of interests and hobbies. Unfortunately, these could not solve the root of the problem. Therefore, some unsolved mysteries became the focus of their lives. They continued to explore and explore, which became the focus of their daily life to dispel the emptiness and boredom. Since the enlightened masters can't understand it, I won't waste my time. Chu Li said, Forget it then. You really don't want to understand it? Lu Xuanji smiled faintly. At Chu Li's level, he was almost at the top of the world. Such mysteries were the hardest to resist. He believed that Chu Li would not give up. Chu Li said, Elder, I taught the divine ladies a bit of the firmament sword technique. Lu Xuanji was puzzled. The firmament sword technique was a mysterious technique that could threaten the enlightened masters. If the divine ladies mastered it, wouldn't it be a reversal of the position of master and servant? Chu Li smiled. I think the divine ladies should be stronger to pose a threat to the enlightened masters so that they can gain more respect and stimulate the vitality of the enlightened masters. You're thinking that the enlightened masters are too relaxed. Lu Xuanji suddenly realized and thought. He suddenly felt that Chu Li's idea was not bad. The enlightened masters were too lazy and felt bored. Even conquering them would not stimulate their interest and excitement. If the divine ladies suddenly became powerful, they would have to fight back or even be crushed by the divine ladies. They would be able to keep their spirits up. Moreover, the divine ladies had a deep relationship with them. It would not be easy to deal with them. It was very troublesome and made their lives more interesting. Ha ha! Lu Xuanji suddenly clapped and laughed. He shook his head. Don't play with fire. That will depend on the heavenly gods. Chu Li chuckled. If the enlightened masters fail to live up to expectations and the divine ladies surpass them, that might not necessarily be a bad thing. You! Lu Xuanji pointed at him, looking as if he did not know what to say. I'll say it again, be careful of the sky demons, they are the scariest. Chu Li gave a fist salute. When he returned to the small courtyard from the Sutra Pagoda, he discovered that Wen-yi was motionless in the courtyard. Sword chi surrounded her, as if she had transformed into a fleeting spiritual sword, slashing in all directions. Chuli looked at her with satisfaction. She had a slender and graceful figure, a beautiful appearance, and a gentle and pleasant temperament. She was truly a perfect woman. He suddenly shook his head. Unfortunately, his heart was as still as water, and he could not move his heart towards her. If it was in the past, he would definitely be unable to extricate himself from seeing such a perfect woman. Which man could resist such a gentlewoman? When he suddenly opened her eyes and bowed. Young master. Chuli waved his hand. Continue training. Does young master want to leave the god of heaven mountain? Wen-yi asked. Yes, I have to go down, Chuli replied. I still have matters to attend to in the mortal world. Can I follow you, young master? Wen-yi asked. Chuli was stunned. Wen-yi bit her red lips, her eyes flashed as if she had made a great decision. I want to follow you, young master. Chuli said, the spiritual energy down there is murky, it is not as clean as the god of heaven mountain. It is more comfortable to stay here, why do you want to suffer? Wen-yi said, it is because it is too comfortable here that I want to follow you down the mountain and experience the troubles of the mortal world. This is more beneficial for the cultivation of the firmament sword, right? Yes, Chuli looked at her with admiration. To be able to see this far, one must have great wisdom. It was human nature to be afraid of difficulties and avoid suffering. Just like how if there was a bright path ahead, why would one take the rugged path? No one would want to suffer. Wen-yi was excited. So young master agrees? Do you really want to go down the mountain to train? Chuli asked. Wen-yi pursed her red lips and nodded. Chuli said, if you want to train, then do something for me, something dangerous. Please tell me, young master, Wen-yi said. Chuli said, become a creation sect disciple. Find out the truth about the creation sect? Wen-yi pondered and asked, is it the creation sect that is one of the 5 sects of Tiannan South? Chuli said, you can go in, there is no need to find out the truth. Yes, Wen-yi said. As a divine lady, her qualifications were top-notch. The creation sect had strict requirements for their disciples' qualifications, and they had very few disciples. If they saw a good seedling, they would definitely not let it go. Therefore, she did not have to be deliberate. As long as the creation sect found out, they would take the initiative to snatch her into the sect. Moreover, her background was clean. Chuli said, please wait. He turned and left the small courtyard, quickly finding Lu Xuanji to ask for Wen-yi. Lu Xuanji agreed readily. Wen-yi was originally difficult to ask for, so it was best to give her to Chuli. Imperial Gate, one of the 9 halls, was located in the center. It was circular in shape, and when looked down from the sky, it looked like an altar. The main hall was golden in color and shone dazzlingly under the sun. It was luxurious and majestic. Su Jingxing stood in the middle of the main hall with his hands behind his back. He looked up at the majestic statue on the north wall. It was a middle-aged man who was holding a knife and looking down at the world. The middle-aged man had an ordinary appearance and was not easy to remember, but his eyes were unforgettable. Su Jingxing stared at them in a daze. Footsteps could be heard as 4 middle-aged men stepped into the hall and stood behind him. They silently looked at the statue and quickly immersed themselves in the soaring spirit of the world. Cough! After a while, Su Jingxing turned around and coughed lightly. He covered his mouth and coughed violently several times. Cough, 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 cough. Eldest senior brother, take care, a handsome middle-aged man said in a low voice. Su Jingxing waved his hand, but his palm was dark red. The other 4 were worried. He was still coughing blood. The severity of his injury was beyond imagination. Could it be that the creation sect really had a martial art that could restrain the plain Yin blade? Su Jingxing sighed. His face was dark red, but it quickly turned pale. He stopped coughing, which made the other four even more worried. He had used a secret skill to suppress his injury. It was obvious that spirit pills and inner energy could not restrain it. Eldest senior brother, let's go to the creation sect again, the handsome middle-aged man said in a low voice. This time, the 5 of us will attack together. Su Jingxing waved his hand. This is Jing Ru's injury. The 4 were stunned. Su Jingxing sighed. The creation sect is not the truly powerful one, it's Jing Ru. Is he really the #1 master in Tianan or even the world? A red-faced middle-aged man frowned and sneered. How arrogant! Not exactly, but not far, Su Jingxing said. Looks like we have to get rid of him. The red-faced middle-aged man sneered. The #1 master in Tianan, or even the world, died in the hands of the Imperial faction. Let's see who dares to object? That's what I was thinking. Su Jingxing nodded slowly. Looks like we have to use our trump card. I didn't want to use it at first. Eldest senior brother, we should get rid of Chu Li. Although he has no evil deeds, he's a disciple of the Lotus faction. The corner of the handsome middle-aged man's mouth curled up. He can only blame his bad luck for running into the Imperial faction and blocking our way. Su Jingxing said, Junior brother son, don't say that. This statement was too shallow. It would lose people's trust if it was said. Eldest senior brother, I understand. The handsome middle-aged man smiled mysteriously. Doing things without saying anything was the eldest senior brother's style. P.S. Update complete. It's the last month. Please buy a monthly ticket as a souvenir. P.S. Fellow readers, I'm Xiao Shu. I recommend a free app that supports downloading, listening to books, 0 advertisements, and multiple reading mode. Dear readers, please pay attention to it. Chapter 40-49. Eldest senior brother, Jing Ru isn't easy to kill. A thin middle-aged man said gloomily. His title of Tiannan's #1 master isn't undeserved. Another burly middle-aged man said coldly, 4th junior brother, do you think we can't kill him? Not necessarily. The thin middle-aged man sneered. Don't fail to kill the dog and get bitten by the dog instead. That would be a joke. Diminishing your own prestige and boosting others' morale. The burly middle-aged man shouted, 4th brother, this is what you like. I'm doing this out of good intentions. The thin middle-aged man cast a sidelong glance at him and said, Don't be blindly confident and think that the 5 elemental guardians can kill Jing Ru in one strike. What if they can't kill him? Shouldn't you think about how to deal with it? If that's what you're thinking, then don't do anything. Just sit at home and wait for death. The burly middle-aged man shouted. Enough. Su Jingxing lightly spat out the 2 words. The 2 middle-aged men stopped abruptly. They stared at Su Jingxing with solemn expressions. Su Jingxing calmly said, I've already deduced it several times and found a foolproof method. Eldest senior brother, please instruct us. The burly middle-aged man hurriedly said. The thin middle-aged man's expression was gloomy, but he didn't say a word or object. Jing Ru's intuition is extremely sharp, so ordinary ambushes are useless. Su Jingxing's tone was indifferent and his gaze was calm. The 4 nodded. At Chu Li's realm, he could act immediately like a cicada before the wind blows. An ambush couldn't succeed, so there was no need to hope for a fluke. They were curious and eager to know Su Jingxing's plan, but they didn't interrupt and quietly listened to Su Jingxing. Su Jingxing continued, so we have to infuriate him first and force him to come. Even though he knows it's a trap, he still has to step into it. The thin middle-aged man hurriedly said, Eldest senior brother, it's said that Jing Ru is shockingly intelligent and can see through the trap at a glance. Will he still step in? Jing Ru is intelligent, but he must be conceited and proud to have cultivated to this level. He knows that we're a trap, but he will still step in and forcefully break the trap. Su Jingxing said, "We have to make use of his feelings for the Lotus Flower sect and his conceit and pride." "We want to kill the Lotus Flower sect disciple?" the thin middle-aged man hurriedly said. Su Jingxing looked at him approvingly. The thin middle-aged man frowned in silence. He shook his head, feeling that it was inappropriate. However, after some thought, he felt that this was the only solution. Only this method could infuriate Jingru into stepping into the trap. "Since we're going to kill a Lotus Flower school disciple, then we'll have to choose a good one," the handsome middle-aged man slowly said. "A normal Lotus Flower school disciple won't do. This Jingru has a great relationship with the Lotus Flower sect's Jingxue," the thin middle-aged man said in a low voice. "Jingxue is extremely beautiful, so she definitely has feelings for one another. As long as we kill Jingxue, Jingru will definitely go mad and lose all reason. Then we'll be able to easily kill her." "Good idea." The handsome middle-aged man nodded. The burly middle-aged man curled his lip. "What kind of idea is that? It's too easy to just kill her, but we have to humiliate her first. Only then will Jinru go completely crazy." "I see." The other three pondered, but Su Jingxing did not say a word. The three of them looked at Su Jingxing. Seeing his expression, they knew that it was a silent agreement. They hesitated for a moment, then slowly nodded. Although this method was a little violent and sinister, so much so that it wasn't even presentable, they could only use this method in order to eliminate Jingru. They weren't doing this for themselves, but for the Imperial Extreme School. As long as they eliminated Jingru, the Imperial Extreme School would be able to soar into the sky and dominate the entire Tiannan, or even the entire world. When they thought of this, their blood boiled. They had persevered in bitter training for so many years, even cultivating in seclusion. Wasn't it all for this dream? After mastering the great Yin Pure Saber, their dream was within reach, and no one could stop them. "I'll go find out Jingshue's whereabouts. She doesn't leave the sect too often, so we need a bait to lure her out. Also, this Jingxue isn't easy to deal with," the thin middle-aged man said in a low voice. "Third brother, be careful. Don't fail miserably." The burly middle-aged man snorted. A cold light flashed in the thin middle-aged man's eyes. He gave him a sinister smile and turned to leave. The burly middle-aged man curled his lips. Su Jingxing waved his hand, and the other three retreated as well. He was the only one left in the hall, staring at the insufferably arrogant patriarch. Jingxue received a dual invitation in her courtyard. Her clothes were as white as snow, flawless and without a speck of dirt. She looked at the dual invitation as though she was trying to figure it out. In the end, she shook her head and laughed. Su Xian stood in front of her on a lotus pedestal. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, "What's up with the Imperial Extreme School again?" Jingxue said, "They want to kill senior brother. Their target is Jingru?" Su Xian frowned and said coldly, "They haven't given up. Number 1 in the world." Jingxue chuckled and shook her head. "They really dare to dream. At senior brother Jingru's level, he hasn't even claimed to be number 1 in the world. They want to be number 1 after mastering the great Yin Pure Saber? They are underestimating the heroes of the world. Then ignore them." Su Xian snorted. Jingxue shook her head gently. "I'll go take a look." This Tang Ren can be considered a top figure in the Imperial Extreme School, right? He's known as the number 1 expert in the Imperial Extreme School. Su Xian nodded. And he's extremely young. He's someone who was as famous as Xin Xing, all the more reason for me to see him. Jingxue said, "But I have to tell senior brother about this first. They definitely want to ambush me and lure you out. Why are you messing around with them?" Su Xian was puzzled. Jingxue smiled and said, "Let senior brother decide." "Alright." Su Xian slowly nodded in puzzlement. She should tell Jingru about this, but she did not understand why Jingxue still wanted to continue messing around. The Imperial Extreme School was nothing to worry about. Jingshue's behavior clearly showed that she was wary of the Imperial Extreme School. Did she see what would happen in the future? The peak of Tianmeng Mountain was shrouded in clouds and mist. A handsome youth stood at the edge of the cliff with his hands behind his back, facing the howling wind. He stood tall and proud like a pine tree. He suddenly narrowed his eyes and turned to look behind him. Jingxue was already standing in the air. The lotus pedestal supported her in the air. She looked down at the handsome youth and said coldly, "You are Huang Ren of the Imperial Extreme School?" "I am indeed Huang Ren," the handsome youth said proudly. With one hand behind his back, he had a graceful bearing. His azure robes fluttered in the wind as he said calmly, "Are you Jingxue of the Lotus Flower Sect?" "That's me." Jingxue nodded and said, "You are not the only one here, right? Those who are lying in ambush, come out. Stop hiding and making people laugh." Su Jingxing and the others slowly floated up from the bottom of the cliff, like 5 red clouds drifting out. "It really is you." Jingxue nodded gently and said, "How promising. So many of you want to deal with a weak girl like me with ulterior motives. Isn't it to lure out senior brother?" "Miss Jingxue is indeed very smart." Su Jingxing said calmly, "Miss Jingxue, we have offended you. What do you want to do?" Jingxue said, "Senior brother is not that easy to invite. There is no need for you to worry about that. Let's send you on your way first." Su Jingxing said indifferently. Huang Ren took a step forward. His azure robes fluttered as a vast aura slowly surged out of his body. His eyes shone brightly like a god. Chapter 40-50. Jing Shui frowned at him and sized him up. She did not care about his vast aura at all. Su Jingxing frowned and glanced at the 4. They shook their heads gently. They did not notice Jing Ru's presence. It was obvious that she did not come. Why did Jing Shui not care about Huang Ren's actions? Huang Ren's action was to condense the power of heaven and earth into the pure Yin blade. One slash could cut off Jing Shui's soul. Even if she did not die, she would be half crippled. Jing Shui was so smart. She definitely did not know the power of this move. Why did she not stop it? They felt more and more confused and uneasy. Sigh. Jing Shui glanced at them and shook her head. The human heart is sinister and boundless. It really makes one sigh. As she spoke, she took out 3 jade pendants. One of them was thrown at Huang Ren, while the other 2 were thrown at Su Jingxing and the rest. "Careful!" Su Jingxing shouted. "Dodge!" Huang Ren was conceited and ignored him. He did not dodge and continued to activate the pure Yin blade to cut off the jade pendant. Su Jingxing and the rest suddenly dispersed and retreated in 5 different directions. They were extremely fast. Bang! There was a dull sound. The 3 jade pendants shot out a faint light at the same time. Everyone stopped abruptly. The light in their eyes dissipated and they died instantly. They did not even have time to put up any defenses. Before their protective chi could take effect, they were already dead. Their souls were completely destroyed. Bang, 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 bang. Amidst the dull sounds, the 6 fell to the ground. Jing Shui shook her head and smiled at the void. "Senior brother, this move of yours is really powerful." Chu Li appeared out of thin air. Clean and quick to avoid any unnecessary entanglement. They have asked for mercy and got it. Let's go. "Senior brother, will the Imperial faction be obedient now?" Jing Shui asked. Chu Li shook his head. "They are still ambitious. Let's go to the Imperial faction." "What for?" Jing Shui floated to his side. Chu Li said, "We have to go take a look." The 2 appeared outside the Imperial faction in the next moment. Chu Li pulled Jing Shui and flashed into the Imperial faction, arriving at the basilica in the center. The basilica was empty. Under the observation of Chu Li's great circle mystical void mirror, he could see that all of the Imperial faction's disciples were cultivating diligently. Every single one of them was extremely motivated and wanted to become the #1 sect in the world. He furrowed his brows. He didn't expect this disciple of the Imperial Extreme sect to be so stubborn. His gaze finally landed on the statue in front of him. Jingxue also sized up the statue. It was indeed a little odd. The statue seemed to be alive. It was clearly a dead object, but it had the aura of a living person. Senior brother, this. Jingxue frowned. Chu Li's eyes narrowed. Bang! A muffled sound of thunder came from the void. Chu Li took a step back. 2 1-inch deep footprints had already appeared beneath his feet. It was as if his feet had been branded on the white jade floor. A strange force surged in the void. But a crack suddenly appeared on the statue's eyebrows. Jingxue sensed the lively aura of the statue in front of her dissipate. She finally became a statue. She turned to look at Chu Li. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief. I see. What special technique is this? Jingxue asked. Chu Li said, it's the reincarnation of an ancient soul. It turns out that the plain Yin blade isn't a martial art from this world. It comes from the upper heaven. Jingxue frowned. Chu Li said, the Imperial faction mastered a sacrificial technique. They paid a huge price to allow their ancestors' soul to descend. They broke through the shackles of the upper heaven and obtained the plain Yin blade's antique study. You destroyed their ancestors' soul? Jingxue asked. It's just a remnant will. Chu Li shook his head. Even if it can descend to this upper heaven, there's a time limit. The ancient soul has already returned. Only a remnant will remains. This remnant will affect the entire Imperial faction, forcing all of its disciples to work together. Strange, Jingxue said. Chu Li nodded. This was no different from brainwashing. It forced all the disciples to work together. Its power was truly powerful. The Imperial faction's strength skyrocketed. They could not be underestimated. Jingxue asked, then what do we do? We don't have to care about it now. Chu Li smiled. The Imperial faction is finished. Jingxue was puzzled. Chu Li said, I destroyed the remnant will of the ancient soul. The disciples will return to their senses. They will doubt their previous actions. There will be a strong backlash, and the Imperial faction will fall into pieces. It will be difficult for them to work together. They will no longer be a threat. Jingxue smiled sweetly. Senior brother, you are truly benevolent. Your merit is immeasurable. Chu Li said, this is also the drawback of the brainwashing technique. It will cause a strong backlash. The disciples of the Imperial faction will no longer be loyal to the Imperial faction from now on. Destroying the Imperial faction's lofty ambitions would cost a lot of blood. How could merit be little? Even at his current level, he still needed a huge amount of merit. Merit was more precious than hard work. Through this move, he could probably condense another merit golden lotus. It would push his cultivation to another level. He did not know which martial art he would improve. He could not wait to bring Jingxue back to the sect. When he arrived at his courtyard, the merit golden lotus had already condensed. It turned into a golden light and entered his mouth. He smiled. After a moment, he frowned and shook his head. Jingxue said, Senior brother, did you gain anything? Chu Li nodded. Jingxue said, maybe it's because senior brother's cultivation is too deep. The growth of one golden lotus is limited. That's why it didn't show. Chu Li nodded. Because of this, his cultivation was too deep. That was why one merit golden lotus was limited. His giant spirit fist did not advance, Azure Cloud Divine Sword could not advance, and Heaven Lotus God's Descent could not advance. This time, his improvement was in the Great Light Scripture. This time, the Imperial faction is no longer a threat. Out of the 5 sects of Tiannan, only the Church of Evil and the Creation sect are left. Jingxue frowned. These 2 sects are difficult to deal with. Chu Li said, Junior sister, don't worry about them. Don't provoke them either. Senior brother, you have a plan? Jingxue smiled. The creation sect is the big problem. I'm afraid they're plotting something big. She could not see the depth of the creation sect. There was an invisible force blocking them. This was what worried her. The creation sect was too strong. They were much stronger than the Lotus sect. This was under the circumstances that the Lotus sect had her and senior brother. It was obvious that the creation sect had masters who were stronger than senior brother. Was this not scary? Chu Li nodded slowly. He was most afraid of Zhou Qinglan from the creation sect. He had a vague speculation. Suddenly, his expression changed. He looked up at the sky. What's wrong, senior brother? Jingxue saw his ugly expression and quickly asked in a low voice, Is it the god of Heaven Mountain? Chu Li's expression was gloomy. He said slowly, The god of Heaven Mountain has disappeared. Jingxue was in disbelief. This means that the enlightened masters are dead? Chu Li shook his head slowly. They've left. They've left this world. He knew that the god of Heaven Mountain had the ability to travel through the void. They could break through the void and travel from one world to another. They had been avoiding the heavenly demon all this time. They never thought that the god of Heaven Mountain would be so afraid of the heavenly demon that they would leave this world. This was because the enlightened masters were timid, but it also explained a big problem. The enlightened masters felt that this world was hopeless and would definitely be invaded and occupied by the heavenly demon. In other words, it had already been occupied by the heavenly demon. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 40-51. Chu Li frowned and fell into deep thought. He didn't care about the departure of the heavenly deities. What he cared about was why they left. Did it have something to do with the heavenly demons? If they didn't fear the heavenly demons, why would they leave? Could it be that the heavenly demon really controlled this world? In the next moment, he appeared in the void. The place where the god of Heaven Mountain used to be was now empty, and only a strand of strange aura was drifting about. Chu Li waved his hand. This invisible and traceless aura floated in front of him. Pop! Ripples seemed to appear in the void, like a pebble falling into a lake. Ripples appeared on the surface of the lake and slowly spread out. Lu Xuanji appeared in front of Chu Li. Jinru, we're leaving. A smile appeared on Lu Xuanji's face. In the end, they still decided to leave. This is the decision of the heavenly deities. Chu Li looked at him quietly. Lu Xuanji said, You must be very disappointed. Why did you leave without saying goodbye? Chu Li remained silent. This should just be a recording. It didn't matter if he said it or not, Lu Xuanji would continue. Because of the appearance of the great celestial demon, this side of the world has become extremely dangerous. We can only escape in haste. Otherwise, we won't be able to leave even if we wanted to. The so-called Great Sky Demon is the great perfection of the Sky Demon. This is the second time the Great Sky Demon has appeared since ancient times. Lu Xuanji actually showed a rare trace of fear. His face was solemn as he slowly said, We can only retreat, we have no other choice. Chu Li frowned at him. What do you want to ask, Jinru? Asked Lu Xuanji. Chu Li was surprised. Elder, you can see me? This is our heaven's secret technique. Lu Xuanji said, It can be used to communicate through space. With your mental energy, it should be enough for you to communicate. Chu Li asked, Is the great heavenly demon really that terrifying? It's scarier than you can imagine. Lu Xuanji revealed a fearful expression. Wherever the great sky demon goes, there is only submission and nothing else. Subdue the enemy without fighting? Chu Li asked. Lu Xuanji said slowly, As long as you see the great sky demon, you will naturally want to submit to her. No matter how strong your will is, it will be useless. Chu Li asked, Is there no way to restrain it? As far as I know, there is no way to restrain it. Lu Xuanji shook his head. Chu Li asked, How did the great heavenly demon die? Who said she died? Lu Xuanji said indifferently, "She's still alive, but we don't know which layer of heaven she's in. No one knows where she is." Chu Li's expression changed slightly. "She can travel through every layer of heaven at will? This is the most terrifying aspect of the great sky demon." Lu Xuanji said, "There are a total of 33 heavens. She can directly enter the 33 heavens and cultivate the martial arts of the 33 heavens. From there, she can strengthen herself and come down to the lower heavens to do as she pleases." Chu Li perked up and hurriedly said, "If that's the case, his true strength isn't his martial arts, but his ability to bewitch people." Lu Xuanji shook his head lightly. "I don't know the level of her martial arts, because she doesn't even need to make a move. Just a look or a thought is enough to make her opponent surrender. Life or death, it all depends on her." Chu Li said, "Now that the great enlightened master is in this world, she can really go anywhere she wants. What can you do even if you escape?" Lu Xuanji shook his head and said, "She can come and go as she pleases, but it takes a lot of energy, so she might not go anywhere else." "Then take care, elder." Chu Li fist saluted. Lu Xuanji looked worried. "Jingru, you won't be able to resist her." Chu Li said, "Elder, what other choice do I have? I can only try my best." "Jingru, for the sake of our friendship, I'll give you a piece of advice." Lu Xuanji said solemnly, "It's up to you whether you want to listen to me or not." Chu Li said, "Elder, you asked me not to resist, right? If I resist less, I'll be punished less, or I can just surrender obediently." "The great sky demon has never failed," Lu Xuanji said slowly. "She will have heavenly demon generals under her command. You can become a heavenly demon general and protect the sect." Chu Li fell silent. Lu Xuanji said, "Otherwise, if you anger the great sky demon, the sect will be destroyed. The great sky demon won't be merciful." "Thank you for your advice, elder," Chu Li said. Lu Xuanji said, "Actually, there's another way, and it's your best choice." Chu Li fist saluted. "Please tell me, elder." "Leave this world," Lu Xuanji said. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. How could he leave this world? Out of the few worlds he had experienced, he had the best feelings for this world, and he had the deepest feelings for it. The Lotus Flower sect was like a pure land, allowing him to completely relax. Lu Xuanji said, "I left behind a treasure that will allow you to break through this world and return to the next world." Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Lu Xuanji said, "The heavenly demon has an important characteristic. The lower the level of the world, the stronger the restriction on her power. Therefore, the lower the realm, the weaker her ability to bewitch people, and she relies more on martial arts." Chu Li pondered. Lu Xuanji said, "You can only fight against the great sky demon if you return to the next world. It's impossible in this world." Chu Li asked, "Can I still come back?" Lu Xuanji shook his head. "This treasure can only let you go back, but you can't come back. But this world is already in the great sky demon's possession, what's there to be reluctant about? If you leave, the Lotus Flower sect will be more relaxed." Chu Li smiled bitterly. If all the disciples of the Lotus Flower sect surrendered to the great sky demon, they would be safe. Lu Xuanji said, "The treasure is in the cave at the bottom of the mountain, you can find it." "Thank you, elder." Chu Li fist saluted. Lu Xuanji said, "We will meet again, but I hope that you won't be a heavenly demon general under the great sky demon." Chu Li smiled. "The world is unpredictable, elder and enlightened masters, take care." "Same to you." Lu Xuanji sighed heavily, fist saluted, and then disappeared into the void, completely losing his aura. Chu Li's face darkened. He looked down and disappeared in a flash, appearing in a cave at the foot of the mountain in the next moment. There was a round jade hidden in the cave. It was the same as the Imperial Register. A strange energy circulated, as if it had merged with the void and completely disappeared. Chu Li held it tightly, feeling that if he let go, it would disappear and he would lose it forever. He suddenly believed that Lu Xuanji did not lie to him. With this, he could directly return to the next realm and meet Shao Qi and the others. He could not help but think of their voices, faces, and smiles. Thanks to his photographic memory, not only did the three women not become blurry because of the passage of time and the isolation of space, but they became clearer. Every frown and smile of theirs often appeared in front of him, and every time he woke up, he missed them even more, wishing that he could meet them immediately. He looked at the jade amulet in his hand, his heart surging, unable to control himself. He took a deep breath, his face filled with struggle and depression, and he put the jade amulet back into his bosom, cherishing it but not allowing it to be used. If he did not get rid of Zhou Qinglan, he would not be able to rest easy even if he went down. In the end, he would still have to bear the pain of separation, so it was better to get rid of him once and for all. With this thought in mind, he returned to his courtyard. Jing Shui was waiting for him, and when she saw him return, she looked at him with concern. "Senior brother, what happened?" Chu Li said, "Junior sister, I'm leaving. Please remember the domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version." Chapter 4052. Go! Jingxue was stunned. Her eyes were misty. "Where are you going, senior brother?" Her intuition was sharp and she felt something was wrong. Her heart felt empty as if she was about to lose him completely. Chu Li said, "I'm going to the creation sect." Jingxue frowned and said worriedly, "Senior brother, you cannot go to the creation sect." Chu Li sighed. "I have to go eventually. I will not be at ease if I don't get to the bottom of this. The current creation sect is not the same as before." Jingxue shook her head. "It's best not to get close." "It's okay." Chu Li smiled. "Junior sister knows that I am afraid of death and will not risk my life. Even if I cannot win, I will escape." Jingxue had a bitter expression. "I am just afraid that you will not escape." Chu Li said, "I will not die. Senior brother, you have to promise me." Jingxue said softly, "If you have to choose between the fate of the entire sect and your own, you have to be selfish for once and only think about yourself." Chu Li looked at her quietly. Jingxue said, "The only thing that can restrain you in this world is the Lotus sect. Do not let it become your burden and restrict your freedom. If this weakness could be erased, senior brother would be almost invincible. No matter how strong the creation sect or heavenly demons were, they could not defeat senior brother." Chu Li fell silent. Jingxue said, "I think all the Lotus sect disciples will not blame you." "Thank you, junior sister." Chu Li looked deeply at her. She was like a beauty carved from white jade, snow white and flawless. It was a great pleasure to have such a woman by his side, even if there was no love between a man and a woman. He was very grateful for his luck in this world. He always had Jingxue by his side. It was pleasing to the eye and allowed him to improve by leaps and bounds. Without Jingxue, his heart would have been dead, and he might not have achieved what he had today. Jingxue shook her head. Her bright eyes were full of love and she said no more. Chu Li fist saluted and disappeared in a flash. Jingxue sighed faintly. In the end, she did not say it. Chu Li appeared outside the creation sect in the next moment. As soon as he appeared, several figures flashed in front of him. 16 youths held wooden swords and surrounded him. Chang Luo appeared next, coldly staring at him. "Jingru, why have you come again?" Chu Li raised his head and stared at the void where the creation pool was located. He could vaguely sense the hostility coming from the creation pool. Since when did the fortune pool become hostile toward them? Chang Luo flew into a rage when he saw him looking down on him. "Jingru, are you courting death?" Chu Li asked. "Where's sect leader Zhou?" "The sovereign is still in seclusion and will not see you." Chang Luo said coldly. "You want to take advantage of him?" Chu Li shook his head. "Has sect leader Zhou come out of isolated cultivation?" "Nonsense." Chang Luo shouted. Why would I lie to you? If you continue to pester me, don't blame me for being ruthless and destroying your soul. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. This Chang Luo made it sound like he was being very benevolent, purposely showing mercy. It could be said to be dignified. Chang Luo's eyes gleamed with a cold light as he exuded a murderous aura. He waved his hand fiercely. You're so stubborn that you're courting death. Kill him. 16 youths thrust their wooden swords at him. Suddenly, the power of the fortune pool surged and turned into 16 blades that slashed at him. 16 large words suddenly appeared in the void around Chu Li, shining brightly. Bam 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 bam. The 16 words emitted a dazzling light that blocked the power of the fortune pool. He quietly stood in the void, ignoring the 16 youths as he calmly looked in the direction of the fortune pool. Bam 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 bam. The 16 words spun continuously as they clashed with the 16 youths' wooden swords. The power of the fortune pool contained in the wooden swords could not break through the 16 words and could only attack Chu Li wildly. Chang Luo's eyelids twitched. He did not expect Chu Li to be more difficult to deal with than before. If this went on, he would not be able to do anything. If he really disturbed the sovereign's isolated cultivation, he would not be able to redeem himself even if he died 100 times. The more he was afraid of something, the more it would come. Chu Li suddenly raised his voice. Why don't you show yourself, sect leader Zhou? Sigh. A faint sigh was suddenly heard. The void around him seemed to become quiet. Chu Li felt as if he was in a still world. Chang Luo and the 16 youths had stopped moving. The faint sigh was heard. Why do you have to do this? Chu Li said. Sect leader Zhou has indeed become a great heavenly demon. Congratulations! A white shadow flashed and a faint fragrance filled the air. Zhou Qinglan's white robe fluttered as she floated in the void like a fairy and looked down at Chu Li. Boom! Chu Li's eyes suddenly lit up and he heard a roar beside his ears. It was as if he had suddenly lost consciousness. His thoughts stopped and his mind went blank. After a long time, when he regained his senses, he realized that he was already standing in front of Zhou Qinglan. He was so close to her that he could smell the faint fragrance on her body. It was so refreshing that he could not control his emotions. He wanted nothing more than to repay her with his broken bones. As long as she could remember him and remember that there was once a person who disregarded everything to love her, he wanted nothing more than to die. As long as she could remember him and think of him occasionally, he would be satisfied. He then became vigilant and the Buddhas and demons in his mind began to operate. Then, the lotuses that filled the sky floated and slowly gathered on the Buddhas and demons. The great light scripture floated in his mind and the Sanskrit chants lingered. His mind gradually became clear, and he suddenly broke out in a sweat when he recalled his previous thoughts. He did not stop and slowly approached Zhou Qinglan. As the clear fragrance entered his nose, he could not help but feel his emotions waver and almost could not control himself. He had a deep desire to embrace Zhou Qinglan, who was dressed as white as snow, but he also had an indescribable sense of inferiority. He felt that he was not worthy of her. She was like the clouds in the sky and he was like the mud in the abyss. It was enough as long as he could look at her from afar. The great light scripture suddenly sounded and was abnormally loud. Chu Li came to a realization again. He took another step forward and arrived in front of Zhou Qinglan. They were only a fist apart. Zhou Qinglan frowned and glanced at him. She wanted Chu Li to come closer but did not let him come this close. It was obvious that he was too close, even to the point of being intimate. She was very confident in her bewitching technique. No matter how strong Jingru was, he would not be able to resist it. There was no one in this world who could. Jingru, does the Lotus sect still have a trump card? She asked gently. Her tone was intimate as if she was talking to an old friend. Chu Li shook his head lightly. I am the Lotus sect's trump card. Looks like you really are the #1 master of the Lotus sect. A smile appeared on Zhou Qinglan's delicate and beautiful face. Then are you willing to be the long sword in my hand? Chu Li said. Then what about Zhou Mei and Zhou Shuang? Zhou Qinglan's expression changed slightly and her eyes suddenly lit up. Chu Li had already closed his eyes. He stretched out his hand and gently grabbed her wrist. His inner energy surged over like a tide. However, there was nothing in front of him. When he opened his eyes to look, Zhou Qinglan was already standing in the air 100 feet away. Her white clothes fluttered in the wind as if she was flying in the sky in a Buddhist land. Good one, Jingru. Who exactly are you? Zhou Qinglan said lightly. The people of this world should not know Zhou Mei and Zhou Shuang. They were her 2 maids and the people closest to her. They were not in this world at all. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Fastest website for mobile version. Chapter 4053. Chu Li calmly replied, I'm Dingru. Dingru? Zhou Qinglan frowned. The Great Mercy Temple's monk Dingru? Chu Li slowly nodded. Sect leader Zhou, you do know me? Zhou Qinglan asked. Did you come here to find me? Yes. Chu Li stared at her. Sect leader Zhou is indeed resourceful to be able to travel to the lower realm. You must have a treasure to help you, right? Yes. Zhou Qinglan chuckled. You want this treasure? As she spoke, she took out a small jade tower from her sleeve. The jade tower was only the size of a palm, but it was exquisite and had a warm green luster. It was obvious that it was carved out of green jade. Chu Li's gaze focused. This jade tower had a fatal charm. Once he looked at it, he could not look away. The more he looked, the more he wanted to look at it. Slowly, his spirit seemed to be absorbed into this jade tower. Gradually, he realized that the jade tower was becoming bigger and bigger, turning into a real jade tower. Sanskrit sounds suddenly rang in his mind. His mind cleared. The jade tower was still the same jade tower. It was flawless and glowed with a warm luster as if it was alive. Zhou Qinglan chuckled. You do have some willpower. No wonder you could break free. Dingru, you're the only one who has this ability. Chu Li said coldly, if that's the case, should I feel honored? Looks like you're prepared to be my enemy? Zhou Qinglan playfully smiled. Have you thought of the consequences? Tell me, Chu Li coldly replied. Zhou Qinglan said, I'll personally go to the Lotus sect, but they can't resist my will. Then, I'll have them surround you. Very normal. Chu Li calmly asked, why do you have to use such a childish trick? Zhou Qinglan said, they'll die together with you. Even if they can't kill you, they'll die one by one in front of you, and they won't be resurrected. Don't you think it's interesting? Chu Li frowned. Is sect leader Zhou a great heavenly demon? Did the enlightened masters say that? Zhou Qinglan scorned. A bunch of pitiful creatures who bully the weak and fear the strong. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Although it was vicious, it was not wrong. Zhou Qinglan said, did they escape again? Chu Li replied, the only way to escape from the great heavenly demon is to escape. This is a common understanding among enlightened masters. You won't be able to catch up to them. One day they will fall into my hands. Zhou Qinglan said indifferently, as if he was narrating a fact. Chu Li nodded and asked, the great heavenly demon has an unlimited lifespan, right? Zhou Qinglan said, you want to become a sky fiend too? That's impossible. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and said, to be honest, sect leader Zhou, I also know a little about the sky demon scripture. As soon as he finished speaking, the heavenly demon, who had been silent in his mind, suddenly opened his eyes. His body suddenly expanded, and in an instant, he had already grown 10 times bigger. He was like a giant spirit standing in the void of his mind. His body began to move slowly and with great difficulty, as if he was moving a mountain. However, an enormous force had already descended from the void and landed on his body. Chu seemed to have turned into a mountain as he quietly looked at Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan's expression changed. A sense of familiarity arose spontaneously. She could not feel any hostility towards Chu, and instead, she wanted to get closer to him. She knew very well why this was the heavenly demon's own aura. Anyone who stepped into the heavenly demon field would unnaturally feel a sense of subservience and reverence. She was still affected by the heavenly demon field even though she had reached such a realm. It was obvious that Ding Ru's heavenly demonic power had also reached an extremely profound level, and was not any weaker than hers. This was simply impossible. The world was so big, but there was almost no one who could match her cultivation level of the heavenly demonic power. Even if there were, there would only be one or two. Chu looked at her calmly and said slowly, "Is this the heavenly demonic power?" As soon as he said this, a huge black shadow slowly appeared in the void behind him. It was as tall as a mountain, and it floated in the void as if it was stepping on the ground. "Ding Ru, who are you?" Zhou Qinglan shouted. Ding Ru was the top master in the Great Mercy Temple, and a Buddhist honorable master. It was truly unbelievable that she was well versed in the heavenly demonic power. It was difficult for Buddhist heart techniques and the heavenly demonic power to coexist. Cultivating both Buddhism and demonic power was a joke. The more profound one's realm was, the more intense the conflict between the two would be. However, there was a person in front of her who could condense both Buddhism and demonic power. Moreover, his cultivation level was so profound that he could easily shake her mind. Chu said, "I am Chu Dingru and Jingru. Did you come here for the sky-piercing tower?" Zhou Qinglan waved the jasper tower in his hand. Chu raised his eyebrows. "Sky-piercing tower?" Zhou Qinglan nodded and said, "The sky-piercing tower can connect heaven and earth. This heaven and earth isn't just one level, but 33 levels." Chu asked, "The great heavenly demon doesn't need the sky-piercing tower, right?" Zhou Qinglan chuckled. "It seems that the enlightened master didn't hide anything from you. He told you a lot of things." Chu frowned. "You're not the great heavenly demon? Who said that the great heavenly demon doesn't need the sky-piercing tower?" Zhou Qinglan shook his head. "There are rules in heaven and earth. The more powerful one is, the more restrictions one will have to face. Don't you know that?" Chu nodded. He could vaguely feel the restrictions as well. It was the rules of heaven and earth, but he could only vaguely feel it. It seemed that his cultivation level was still too low. Zhou Qinglan said, "Even if I become the great heavenly demon, I'm just a speck of dust in heaven and earth. Do you think that the great heavenly demon can do whatever he wants?" Chu asked, "Can't the great heavenly demon travel through the void freely?" Zhou Qinglan smiled without saying a word. She did not want to answer, but she still said this. It was tantamount to unlocking a small part of the great heavenly demon's secret. This was due to the heavenly demon field's influence. She secretly channeled the heavenly demonic power to resist it. She finally managed to resist the urge to ask the last question, but she did not say it. Chu raised his eyebrows. The heavenly demon shadow in the void behind him began to perform the giant spirit fist. Its movements were slow as if it was not moving. However, the aura on his body became heavier and stronger. The mountain that was originally a mountain became taller and larger, and the aura became more majestic. "Can the great heavenly demon travel through the void freely?" Chu asked slowly. Zhou Qinglan gritted her teeth. The smile on her face disappeared completely. She was as cold as ice as she uttered two words. "No." Chu nodded. "So you can really travel through the void?" Zhou Qinglan frowned and stared at him. Chu said, "You can travel through the void, but you have to pay a huge price, so you need a treasure. How about I borrow your sky-piercing tower for now?" "Okay." Zhou Qinglan said this word with difficulty. She slowly raised her hand. Her hand was like white jade, and the sky-piercing tower was like green jade. The white jade and the green jade complemented each other. Chu Li reached out his hand. Just as he was about to take the sky-piercing tower, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. He moved sideways and a crack appeared in the void. Swoosh! A soft whistling sound swept past and disappeared in an instant. Chu Li's face darkened. He looked at the crack that had appeared and disappeared before looking up at Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan smiled sweetly. "Dingru, do you really think you can control me?" Chu Li asked. "Have you been lying to me all this time? What do you think?" Zhou Qinglan giggled. She was like a beautiful flower that was trembling. Chu Li did not admire her at all. He stared coldly at her and activated the great circle mystical void mirror to its limit. He wanted to understand every minute expression and movement of hers. The previous scene replayed in his mind at the same time. He compared it with the current Zhou Qinglan. Please remember the domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version. Chapter 4054. Zhou Qinglan smiled sweetly. You have indeed cultivated the heavenly demonic power. Tell me, how did you manage to cultivate both Buddhism and demonic arts? Chu Li looked up at the void. A shadow appeared behind Zhou Qinglan, but it was similar in size to her. It was neither too big nor too small, had a graceful figure, and her palace dress fluttered in the wind. A sense of intimacy arose. Zhou Qinglan suddenly became like an old friend, and he had a lot to tell her. He could not wait to share all his secrets with her, to please her. Sanskrit chants rang in his mind, and he regained his clarity. Sect leader Zhou, do you still want to cultivate a Buddhist heart technique? Chu Li said gently. I think it's wishful thinking. Zhou Qinglan pursed her red lips and scoffed. Dingru, you're really bad. She acted like a spoiled child to her lover. Chu Li said, Sect leader Zhou, you don't have to pretend anymore. Let's be frank. You should give up on the idea of ruling the world. Dingru, do you really have to stand in my way? Zhou Qinglan sighed. Why do you have to do this? It's not like me ruling the world is a hindrance to you, unless you want to rule the world too. Chu Li shook his head. I don't have that ambition. Do you think it's not a good idea to rule the world? Zhou Qinglan frowned. It's precisely because the world is not unified that there are conflicts and killings. So many innocent people have died, and so many martial arts masters have died because of personal feelings. It's such a pity. Chu Li looked at her from head to toe. She was beautiful, but she could not move his heart. Zhou Qinglan was unpredictable. Everyone was a plaything in her eyes, and she could manipulate them as she pleased, just like her pets. Zhou Qinglan chuckled and said, Do you think my idea is too strange? Chu Li said, Sect leader Zhou, I'm impressed that you're so broad-minded. You don't think so, right? Zhou Qinglan said, You think I'm just saying nice things to fool you? Chu Li shook his head. Zhou Qinglan said, If the world is unified, or even the whole world is unified, everyone will follow the same rules. There will be no more conflicts and killings, and martial arts will naturally become useless. Chu Li frowned at her. Zhou Qinglan smiled gently and said, Kung Fu is the root of all evil in the world. It causes the darkness in people's hearts to swell, and they will no longer be able to restrain themselves. Naturally, there will no longer be modesty and harmony, so disputes arise everywhere. Chu Li listened quietly without saying a word. Zhou Qinglan said calmly, Monk Dingru, as a monk, you should be more compassionate and compassionate. You don't want the world to have wars. Chu Li replied, You're right, sect leader Zhou. As a Buddhist disciple, I don't like fighting, but I also know that this is caused by human nature, and it's very difficult to resolve. You Buddhists claim to be benevolent, but you're actually the coldest. Zhou Qinglan sneered. The laws of cause and effect are cold and heartless. You just let them be. Chu Li shook his head and remained silent. Even if there was truth in the world, it was very difficult to distinguish it. Every world had its own rules. If it was a world where martial arts were weak, then the law was the priority. If it was a world where martial arts were flourishing, then it was the law of the jungle. No one could save everyone. Even if it was Buddha, he could only save the believers. Zhou Qinglan said, "If the two of us join forces, we can change the world. You can also become a living Buddha. Your merits are truly immeasurable." Chu Li said, "Sect leader Zhou, you don't have to waste your breath. Goodbye." "You don't want to kill me?" Zhou Qinglan smiled faintly. Chu Li shook his head. "I'm afraid I won't be able to kill sect leader Zhou. There's no need to waste your effort. Dingru, you're wise," Zhou Qinglan said. "You want to go to the lower realm and see your women, right?" Chu Li narrowed his eyes. Sure enough, she knew him very well. She knew his women very well. Zhou Qinglan chuckled. "If you agree to help me, you can borrow the Sky Tower. From then on, you can freely travel between this world and the lower realm." Chu Li shook his head. "No need." Zhou Qinglan gently lifted the Sky Tower. "If you don't want it, then I'll destroy it." As she spoke, the Sky Tower was lifted high and was about to fall. Chu Li took a step forward and punched lightly. The huge heavenly demonic shadow behind him followed and punched lightly. The air seemed to be torn apart. In the whistling sound of the wind, he took a step in front of Zhou Qinglan, his fist already reaching her chest. Bang! Zhou Qinglan swung the Sky Tower to meet him. His fist collided with the Sky Tower, causing a dull loud sound, causing his expression to change. The vast and boundless power drilled into the Sky Tower, making him worry if the Sky Tower would be destroyed by him. However, the Sky Tower was like a black hole, instantly swallowing this majestic power. It seemed like it was not full yet. There was a vague thought of wanting more, which surprised Chu Li. Could it be that the Sky Tower had its own will? If the treasure had a spirit, could it be that its spirituality had been awakened and could be sensed? Bang! Zhou Qinglan's other hand gently pressed down. In the next moment, it reached his chest and collided with Chu Li's left palm. The sound of the two palms was similar to the sound of the fist and the Sky Tower. In the loud bang, Chu Li and Zhou Qinglan took a step back at the same time. Chu Li frowned. Zhou Qinglan's cultivation level was not inferior to his. Her inner energy was vast and boundless like a vast ocean. He had no confidence in winning at all. Zhou Qinglan also frowned at him. She had the same feeling as Chu Li. It was majestic and vast like a mountain. If one could not see the peak of the mountain, they would naturally feel powerless. In the face of such a majestic peak, the best way was to surrender and not ask for trouble. She immediately realized. This was Dingru's heavenly demonic field. She almost fell for it. It was really impossible to guard against. She never thought that his heavenly demonic power had reached such a level. He was also a great heavenly demon. There were actually two great heavenly demons in the same world. What a joke! Chu Li took another step forward and threw a punch. It was still slow and leisurely. He used the giant spirit fist, and its power was already at its maximum. Bang! The Sky Tower and the fist collided. The Sky Tower lit up with a green light and seemed to become brighter. Then, it met his fist again, and there was another loud bang. Bang 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 bang. Chu Li punched the Sky Tower again and again. He did not believe it. Was Zhou Qinglan not afraid that he would destroy the Sky Tower? Or was she certain that he could not destroy the Sky Tower? The Sky Tower suddenly lit up and turned into a green full moon. Then, it shrouded Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan suddenly disappeared. "Thank you. I'll go see your women." Zhou Qinglan's sweet laughter rang out. She had completely disappeared. Chu Li stopped in place with a gloomy expression. He took out the round amulet. It was the treasure given to him by Lu Xuanji. He could go down directly. Should he go down directly? His expression changed and he was hesitant. The three women were already under the protection of the demon-subduing hall. If Zhou Qinglan went down, would she be able to find the demon-subduing hall and break it? In the past, he was certain that Zhou Qinglan could not do it. No one in the world could do it. Now, he was not so sure. Zhou Qinglan was too strong. If she made a move, no one in the Great Mercy Temple would be able to stop her. They would become her assistants and find a way to find the demon-subduing hall. He looked up at the sky. The smiles of the three women appeared in front of him. He wanted to go down immediately and reunite with the three women. From then on, he would not think about going to the 33 heavens anymore. He only wanted to be with them. After suffering from these days of lovesickness, his lovesickness and lovesickness had almost been completely sharpened, and he had found his true desire. After experiencing all kinds of prosperity and excitement, after experiencing all kinds of wonderful experiences from one world to another, he finally understood that the three women were the ones he longed for the most. P.S. Update complete. Please remember the original domain name of this book. Fastest website for mobile version, M. Chapter 4055. He looked up at the void. A vast aura came from the direction of the creation pool. Compared to it, an individual's strength was insignificant and not worth mentioning. At this point, it was no longer hostile. Chu Li sighed. He still cherished this part of the world. He could not bear to abandon it so abruptly. Even if Zhou Qinglan was pretending to leave, and even if he left, he could return quickly, he would not be able to. Therefore, if he returned now, he could protect Shao Qi and the other two ladies, but it would mean abandoning this world and allowing the great heavenly demon to control it. Zhou Qinglan's words sounded better than a song, but when he actually did it, he might not be as kind, just, or righteous. After all, the great heavenly demon was the great heavenly demon. He knew the state of mind under the heavenly demon heart technique. Everything would be cold and could be abandoned. The fickle human heart was laughable and not worth worrying about. Therefore, as the great heavenly demon, he had no compassion and compassion. Zhou Qinglan's words were just to move his heart. The great heavenly demon was good at playing with people's hearts. She clearly believed that he had a compassionate heart because of his profound Buddhist technique. She did not expect him to cultivate both Buddhism and demonic arts, so his nature was different from both Buddhism and the heavenly demon. His heart was in the middle, so he was more like an ordinary person. Ah! He looked up at the sky and sighed. He still could not abandon this world because of the three ladies. He could not let Zhou Qinglan control this world. When he thought of this, he gritted his teeth and a dim light flashed in his eyes. Then, the azure cloud divine sword invitation in the depths of his mind began to flutter. At that moment, in the Enlightenment Hall on God of Heaven Mountain, the sword invitation suddenly shone. The enlightened master who was comprehending was stunned and could not help but stare at the sword invitation. Suddenly, the sword invitation floated up and left the hook. Then, it floated away as if a pair of invisible hands had carried it out of the Enlightenment Hall and toward the Elders' Hall. Lu Xuanji was meditating when he felt something strange. He got up and went out of the hall to see the sword invitation floating toward him. He smiled and took out a round jade from his sleeve. He put his palms together and channeled his energy into the jade. Then, a bright light burst out and enveloped him. The next moment, his appearance appeared in front of Chu Li. Chu Li fist saluted and smiled. "Greetings, Elder." Lu Xuanji said, "Jingru, you managed to find me." "I can't escape from Elder," Chu Li said. Lu Xuanji stroked his beard and smiled. "You've spent so much effort to find me, is there a reason?" Chu Li nodded. "I've found the great heavenly demon." The smile on Lu Xuanji's face faded as he said in a low voice, "Great Sky Demon?" "The leader of the creation sect, Zhou Qinglan," Chu Li said. Did the elder notice anything? Lu Xuanji frowned and thought for a moment. He sighed and said, I always thought that it was the cult of the Nine Ghosts that had a problem. I didn't expect it to be the creation sect. Chu Li said, the abyssal abyss is strange, and so is the creation pool. Neither is a good place. As for Zhou Qinglan, he's already a great heavenly demon now. So it's her. Lu Xuanji sighed, I really didn't expect this. No wonder she never appeared. Ever since the enlightened master had entered the other world, the creation sect's sect leader had not appeared. He said that he was in closed-door cultivation. Moreover, the creation pool and the abyss of 9 underworlds both made them fearful, so they did not delve too deeply into the matter. However, they did not expect that they had nurtured a tiger that would invite calamity. However, even if he knew, there was nothing he could do about it. Once he became a skyfiend, he would disappear without a trace. It was impossible to truly find and kill him. Elder, I want to go to the 2 lower realms, Chu Li said. Lu Xuanji said, don't you have the sky-inspecting imperial decree? Chu Li said, this sky-inspecting imperial decree can be used but not used? That sky-inspecting imperial decree can allow you to return. Lu Xuanji smiled and said, you can freely travel to the lower realm and return as you wish. Chu Li was surprised. He did not expect this round jade to really be a sky-inspecting imperial decree. Moreover, it could freely travel to the lower realm. Lu Xuanji said, Jingru, this isn't an ordinary treasure. Our god of Heaven Mountain only has one left, so we mustn't lose it. It's a pity that this sky-inspecting imperial decree can't break through the shackles and reach the upper realm. Chu Li said, this is already an extraordinary treasure. Yes. Lu Xuanji shook his head and said, it's said that this jade has yin and yang. One can go up and the other can go down. When the two come together, it can go up and down, and it can rival the great heavenly demon. It's a shame that this treasure is so rare that we couldn't find it. Chu Li's expression did not change. He smiled and said, we can't be too greedy. This one is enough. Elder, I'm going down to look for the great heavenly demon. Be careful. Lu Xuanji's expression was solemn as he slowly said, the great heavenly demon is more powerful than you can imagine. It can change into thousands of forms, especially when it can change into your appearance. It can fool almost everyone. Chu Li frowned and slowly nodded. His heavenly demonic power could do that too, so it would not be difficult for the great heavenly demon to do it too. He thought for a moment before he looked up and said, I won't disturb you any more, Elder. Be careful, Lu Xuanji said. Chu Li fist saluted and disappeared in a flash. The Azure Cloud Divine Sword's power was strange and powerful. It could break through the void, so it could contact Lu Xuanji. He thought for a moment before he returned to his courtyard. He picked up his brush and started writing. In a short while, he had already written more than 20 pieces of paper. Jing Shui gently floated in. When she saw that it was really him, she smiled happily. Senior brother, did everything go well? Chu Li smiled and nodded. It was fine. Junior sister, can you get me some jade pendants? How many? Jing Shui asked. 26 pieces, Chu Li said. Jing Shui turned and floated away. After a while, she returned with a box in her hand. When she opened it, there were pieces of crystal-clear jade pendant. Each piece was the size of a palm and was polished neatly. Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. He took out a piece and placed it on a piece of paper. He folded the paper and wrapped the jade pendant. His hand suddenly glowed brightly. When he let go, the paper disappeared without a trace. Only a few small words vaguely appeared on the jade pendant. He looked at the jade pendant and nodded in satisfaction. Jing Shui was surprised. She took the jade pendant and looked at it for a while. Is the Azure Cloud Divine Sword sealed in it? Chu Li nodded. Jing Shui looked at him. Can it resist the enemy? Chu Li said, it can fight at the critical moment. Moreover, it can sense me. Once it's me, it will naturally light up. Jing Shui looked at him in confusion. Chu Li told her everything that had happened. Jing Shui nodded solemnly. She did not expect the situation to change so suddenly. The entire world was controlled by one person. It was scary just thinking about it. What was more frightening was that this person had the ability to change his appearance. He could pretend to be someone around him at any time. It was impossible to guard against him. Chu Li said, "If I appear and the jade pendant doesn't light up, it's a fake. Don't trust your instincts because the great heavenly demon can fool them." Jing Shui nodded. "All right. Masters Junior Suxian and the others will take care of the rest in case someone impersonates me," Chu Li said. "It can also be used to protect the soul." Jing Shui asked, "Senior brother, you're leaving again?" Chu Li sighed. "I have to go down and take a look, but I'll be back soon. After I leave, stay here and cultivate. Take care of the snow silver flower and the others." Jing Shui pursed her lips and nodded slowly. Chu Li gave her a fist salute and disappeared. Jing Shui's heart felt empty and lost. It was as if she would never see Chu Li again. She could not help but feel upset. Please remember this book's domain name. Mobile version of the fastest updated website, M. Chapter 4056. Chu Li appeared in front of another mountain in a flash. He looked up at the sky above the abyss of 9 spirits, and could vaguely see a vast energy rolling up and down as if it was merging with heaven and earth. This merging was the truly terrifying part. Yin and Yang were intertwined, so one could be resurrected like reincarnation. If the Church of 9 Spirits could convert this energy for their own use, their martial arts would be extremely terrifying. Unfortunately, the Church of 9 Spirits had yet to do so. Chu Li shook his head. The imperial decree in his hand flashed, and he disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in the demon-slaying hall. He realized that this imperial decree was completely different from the one he had used before. The previous one could only allow one to wander spiritually, but this one could only allow one's body to wander spiritually. The reason for this was obvious. It was because ascending to the next heaven was more demanding on one's body. Inside the demon-slaying hall, Shao Qi and the other 2 women were meditating with their eyes closed. The 3 women were dressed in snow-white clothes and had jade-like skin. They looked like 3 white jade statues. The demon-slaying hall was especially good for cultivation. Being in the hall, one's mind was exceptionally calm as they cast aside all worldly troubles and cut off all fetters. As they were in a meditative state, time seemed to stop flowing. It felt like an instant, but it also felt like an eternity. When they sensed something, they opened their eyes and saw Chu Li. They were smiling like 3 incomparably beautiful flowers blooming. The entire demon-slaying hall was dazzling. Chu Li was so excited that he wanted to pull them into his arms. However, he knew that it was inappropriate for the 3 of them to do so, so he restrained himself. "How long has it been, Chu Li?" Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li replied, "I'm afraid it's been 2 years." "It's been 2 years?" Shao Qi sighed. "It seems like it's only been a blink of an eye." Lu Yurong pursed her lips and smiled. "You've been wandering outside all this time. I'm sure you've had a rich and exciting experience?" Chu Li smiled. He pointed at the cattail hassock next to him and sat down with the 3 women. As he looked at their beautiful faces, he felt at peace and joy. He wished he could stay in this state forever. Nonetheless, he knew that he could not stay in this state forever. Otherwise, he would get tired of it. This was the nature of humans. They yearned for excitement and peace. He told them about his experience, which took a full 4 hours, and the 3 women were fascinated by it. "If that's the case, the great skyscraper demon wants to deal with us?" Shao Qi frowned. "That's why you were worried and came over to take a look." Chu Li nodded. "It's impossible to guard against the great heavenly demon, so we must take a look at her." Otherwise, we won't be able to rest easy even though we know that she won't be able to find you. Sun Minghua scoffed and said, she doesn't need to look for us. As long as she finds the Holy Church of Light and Xiao Shi, don't you feel bad? Chu Li's expression changed slightly. Shao Qi furrowed her brows. Big sister will be targeted by her too? Sun Minghua said lightly, if I can think of it, how could she not? Lu Yurong smiled. That might not be the case. If Sister Sun practices the heavenly demonic power, she can also become the great heavenly demon. Me? Sun Minghua chuckled and shook her head. I'm a disciple of the great light scripture. Chu Li said, wait for a while. He thought of the great light scripture that he had inherited, so he reached out and gently placed his hand between Sun Minghua's brows. Sun Minghua frowned and looked at him in confusion, but she allowed him to do as he wished. She watched helplessly as his finger landed between her eyebrows. Boom! A loud sound rang in her ears, followed by bursts of Sanskrit chants. A familiar yet strange voice floated in her mind. A gigantic light Buddha slowly emerged from the bottom of her heart. Shao Qi and Lu Yurong were shocked to see a gigantic Buddha appear behind her. The face of the Buddha was Shao Qi, but the form was completely different. The Buddha's hands formed a mudra as if he was holding a bottle of water. There was no sadness or joy on his face, only calmness. Chu Li slowly retracted his finger. The familiar touch moved him. Just one touch was enough to resolve the pain of yearning. He turned to look at Shao Qi and pointed his finger. Shao Qi closed her eyes and allowed him to touch between her eyebrows. Soon, a gigantic heaven lotus appeared behind her like a white cloud floating in the sky. Then, he slowly retracted his hand and pointed at Lu Yurong. A woman in palace attire appeared behind Lu Yurong. It was the Empyrean fairy. He had transferred the Empyrean fairy power's inheritance from Jing Shui to Lu Yurong. Lu Yurong had originally cultivated the Empyrean fairy power. Now that she had received a deeper inheritance, her cultivation level had improved by leaps and bounds. Her skin had changed from its original delicate and white color to a warm and smooth state. It was as if she had completely transformed into the Empyrean fairy. Chu Li let out a long sigh and closed his eyes. Suddenly, a monstrous power descended from the void and replenished his lost cultivation level in the blink of an eye. The three women had obtained 1/3 of his cultivation level each, which was the limit. If they wanted to achieve the same cultivation level as him, they would need to use the distraction skill several times. After a while, the three women opened their eyes. Shao Qi held his hand and felt the familiar warmth. She said softly, "Husband, let's go and see Big Sister first." Chu Li replied, "Apart from Big Sister, Big Brother and the others have many other concerns. It won't be easy to guard them one by one." He had too many concerns. Compared to the three women, he could not let go of them completely. For example, his disciple, Li Meng, and even Princess Anfu. Nonetheless, he could not split himself. Even though he had a lotus body, it was not very useful against the great skyscraper demon. Shao Qi said, "Big Sister is alone in the palace. She must be suffering. Should I bring Big Sister here?" Chu Li asked, "To keep you company?" Shao Qi nodded. "I'm afraid she might not be willing." Chu Li smiled bitterly. He knew Shao Shi's temper well. She would not agree to it. Shao Qi said, "After so many years, she'll change a little." They had only been in the upper heaven for 1 or 2 years, but it had been more than 10 years in the lower heaven. People's hearts would change, and they would not be like when they were young. "Okay." Chu Li slowly said, "I'll bring Big Sister here." He looked at the other 2 women. Lu Yurong said, "I'm free now. Everyone has their own fate, so it won't make a difference even if I'm not around." It did not matter if she was in the public house or not. Her brothers had their own families, and their father had been in isolated cultivation for a long time, so they had nothing to worry about. Sun Minghua said, "Look at Li Meng. Forget it, the children will have their own fortune." Don't worry about her. Chu Li nodded. Shao-Chi said, we can't go on like this. We have to think of a way to deal with the great skyscraper demon, or else we'll never have peace. Chu Li frowned. I'm afraid it'll be difficult. He took out 3 jade talismans from his sleeve and passed them to them. They were the jade talismans for the Azure Cloud Divine Sword. The first step is to find her. He looked at the 3 women deeply. I'll be back soon. Go and come back soon, Sun Minghua said. Chu Li smiled and nodded, then disappeared in a flash. The 3 women looked at each other with serious expressions, then they closed their eyes and began to integrate their cultivation levels that had skyrocketed. It was useless to say more. Cultivation levels were the only thing that could help. Chu Li appeared in his own courtyard in the Lotus Sect. He heard muffled bangs and loud shouts from the Lotus Sect. His face darkened. Sure enough, they were luring him away. Under the great circle mystical sky mirror, he saw a group of Lotus Sect disciples attacking another group. Although they were not fighting to the death, some people were injured. P.S. Update complete. Chapter 40-57. He had thought about this before, but he was confused by his concern. He would rather make a mistake than let Shao-Chi and the other 2 girls have an accident. Sure enough, it was the same tactic. It was simple and practical. As expected of the great heavenly demon, her manipulation of people's minds had reached perfection. The Buddhas in his mind began to dim. Only the heavenly demon slowly grew bigger. Then, a heavenly demon appeared in the void behind his mind and slowly cultivated the giant spirit fist. The giant spirit fist was a fist technique that transcended the level of this world. Its power was shocking, but more importantly, its momentum was shocking. It was as if it was holding the sky and the earth. It could expand the momentum of the heavenly demon field and affect a wider area. Otherwise, with his current cultivation level of the heavenly demonic power, he could not compare to the great heavenly demon. Under the heavenly demon field, the entire Lotus Sect was affected. The 2 parties that were fighting were suddenly stunned. They faintly felt that something was wrong. It was as if their blood was slowly calming down. Then, they realized that they were doing stupid things. Why were they so impulsive? They usually did not like each other, but people were different. How could they all like each other? There was no need to kill each other. They stopped their techniques and looked at each other awkwardly. Disperse! A shout came from the void. Everyone hurriedly turned and fled. They did not know what kind of punishment they would receive later. It was a big taboo to kill one's fellow disciples. The next moment, Chu Li appeared in front of Su Xian and looked at her quietly. Su Xian smiled faintly. Jingru, when did you come back? Chu Li looked at Jing Shui, who was next to Su Xian. Jing Shui immediately frowned and said softly, It can't be. Sect leader Zhou, I'm impressed. Chu Li said coldly. You can impersonate Masters Junior Su Xian. How brilliant! Su Xian was the next sect leader. Although her seniority was not high, her cultivation level was profound and she had always hidden it. Few disciples in the sect knew about it, but Zhou Qinglan found out and impersonated her. It was clear that Zhou Qinglan had informants among high-ranking disciples in the Lotus Sect, or she had the ability to see through people's minds. However, he could conclude that she had informants in the Lotus Sect because Su Xian had a secret treasure that could block spiritual prying. It was impossible to see through her mind. As expected of Ding Ru, Zhou Qinglan chuckled and looked around. Nobody came. The 3 of them were standing outside a hall. Chu Li said, I thought you'd impersonate me. I didn't expect you to be Masters Junior Su Xian. Don't you know that yin and yang cannot be exchanged? Zhou Qinglan said with a smile, I can't pretend to be a man. Chu Li shook his head. Who knows how powerful the great heavenly demon is? Zhou Qinglan said, Don't worry about that. I'm not that stupid. I won't pretend to be you. However, you can't stop me. Chu Li said, Sect Leader Zhou, it would be easy for me to destroy the Creation Sect, but it won't be easy for you to destroy the Lotus Sect. Zhou Qinglan chuckled. Do you think my cultivation is lower than yours? Chu Li nodded seriously. Sect Leader Zhou, your demonic technique is invincible, but unfortunately, it's ineffective against me. In terms of pure martial arts, you're no match for me. With that, he shot out a blue cloud divine sword. Ding! Zhou Qinglan stretched out her hand to block, her jade-like palm glowing. Chu Li narrowed his eyes. Heavenly demon body? As he circulated his demonic arts, he saw Zhou Qinglan's situation. A strange thought naturally circulated in his mind, and he learned about the heavenly demon body. Zhou Qinglan said, Dingru, you can't kill me. Chu Li thought about it. The heavenly demon in his mind suddenly shrunk, and then the great light Buddha began to grow bigger and bigger. A huge Buddha statue appeared in the void behind him. It looked like him, and its body was like colored glass. It shone brightly as if it could illuminate the world. It was the Great Light Buddha. Amit Ba. Chu Li and the Great Light Buddha behind him pressed their palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. The name of Buddha echoed in the void like a bronze bell. All the disciples of the Lotus sect looked solemn and pressed their palms together. They inexplicably felt solemn, as if they were facing a golden pond. Zhou Qinglan's expression changed. Me, tua, fo. Chu Li chanted the name of Buddha again. The huge Great Light Buddha in the void behind him pressed its palms together and opened its mouth slightly. This vast and solemn voice seemed to come from its mouth. Zhou Qinglan shouted, Shut up! Her figure suddenly changed. The appearance of Su Xian quickly faded, and she turned into Zhou Qinglan's original appearance. Her beauty was like that of a celestial being, stunning Jingxue. Jingshue's eyes widened in disbelief. She never thought that the great heavenly demon that made senior brother's expression change would be so beautiful. She did not need to use any heavenly demonic power at all. She only needed to show her original appearance to capture a man's heart. Me, tua, fo. Chu Li pressed his palms together again and chanted the name of Buddha. The Great Light Buddha slowly opened its mouth and spat out 4 golden lotuses that floated towards Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan sneered. She pressed her palms together, and 4 palm prints met the golden lotuses. The golden lotuses collided with the palm winds. They were silent and unaffected as they continued forward, arriving in front of Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan frowned. She swayed like a lotus and suddenly grabbed at Jingxue. TSS. There was a soft whistle. Ding. Zhou Qinglan took a step back. Her hand glowed, but it was caused by the azure cloud divine sword. Jingxue floated to Chu Li's side. Zhou Qinglan was about to follow closely when the golden lotuses suddenly sped up and disappeared in a flash. The next moment they were already behind her. Hum, hum, bamu. The Sanskrit chants suddenly rang out, followed by a bright light. Endless golden light shot out from the 4 lotuses. 4 golden ropes wrapped around Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan's body swayed as she tried to dodge, but the 4 golden ropes followed her like a shadow. They were getting closer and closer. The next time she tried to dodge, the 4 golden ropes had already wrapped around her. Chu Li pressed his palms together. Amit Ba. The Great Light Buddha in the void spat out 4 more golden lotuses. They instantly rushed towards Zhou Qinglan and turned into 4 golden ropes to wrap around her. Zhou Qinglan sneered. How dare you show off your petty Buddhist skills? Suddenly, a white light shot out of her body like a silk ribbon. First, it blocked the 8 golden ropes, then it spun and turned into a blade that easily cut the golden rope. The golden ropes broke into pieces and floated in the air. Then, they gathered together again. The golden light shone brightly and wrapped around Zhou Qinglan again. TSS, 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 TSS. The white light cut the golden ropes again. Chu Li frowned. The great light Buddha in the void behind him pressed his palms together again and opened his mouth to spit out 4 more golden lotuses. 8 golden lotuses turned into 8 golden ropes and combined with the previous 8. Finally, 16 golden ropes wrapped around her tightly. The white silk ribbon did not show any weakness. It cut the golden ropes again and again, trying to protect Zhou Qinglan and escape. Chu Li scoffed and pressed his palms together again. The great light Buddha in the void behind him pressed his palms together as well. This time, it only spat out 1 golden lotus. It was as big as a lid and its golden light was restrained. It looked like a real golden lotus. It fell towards Zhou Qinglan and met the white silk ribbon. Ding! With a crisp sound, the white silk ribbon was repelled and the golden lotus continued to float towards Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan scoffed and white light flashed around her again. Another white light turned into a silk ribbon and slashed at the golden lotus. Then it was repelled. Another silk ribbon slashed and was repelled again. The speed of the golden lotus slowed down. Zhou Qinglan could not avoid the remaining 16 golden rope. She was instantly wrapped up and tied up. Jingxue smiled. However, Chu Li's expression was solemn. He was neither surprised nor happy. The great light Buddha spat out several more golden lotuses and wrapped them around Zhou Qinglan. Please remember this book's original domain name. The fastest website for mobile version. Chapter 4058. Ha 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 ha. Lovely laughter suddenly rang out. Zhou Qinglan's body trembled, and the golden chains around her body seemed like her jewelry. Jingshue's expression changed. She could tell that something was wrong. Zhou Qinglan did not seem to care about the golden chains binding her. It was as if she could escape at any time. A beautiful woman in palace attire appeared out of thin air behind Zhou Qinglan. She looked exactly like her, as if she was an incarnation. She was lifelike, as if she was real. The beautiful woman flashed to Chu Li's side and lightly struck with her palm. Chu Li pulled Jingxue and retreated. Bang! The air seemed to explode. Chu Li looked at Zhou Qinglan and saw that she was still bound by the golden chains. She did not struggle and only smiled at him. Chu Li asked, "Transformation technique? You're quite knowledgeable." Zhou Qinglan chuckled. As a heavenly demon, you should know about the external transformation technique. I didn't expect it to work, Chu Li said. Back then, he also had an outer body incarnation just like that lotus body. However, that wasn't a real outer body incarnation, it was just a replica. Zhou Qinglan chuckled. A external transformation isn't that great, but it's enough to deal with you. Great light scripture, what a great light scripture! Another beautiful woman in palace attire appeared out of thin air. She looked exactly like her, stunning and breathtaking. Chu Li was not moved. Instead, he was shocked. The second beautiful woman flashed in front of him and struck with her palm again. Chu Li pulled Jingxue and took 2 steps to the side, easily dodging it. However, he felt a gust of wind from the palm behind him and dodged it again. Both Zhou Qinglan attacked at the same time. Chu Li and Jingxue were flustered. The great light Buddha spat out a golden lotus that wrapped around one of the Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan did not dodge. When she was bound, another Zhou Qinglan appeared. When the golden chains bound one, another appeared. Bang! The golden lotus that no one had been paying attention to collided with the Zhou Qinglan bound by the golden chains. There was an explosive sound. Then, tens of thousands of golden rays shot out. Zhou Qinglan trembled and gradually melted in the golden light, disappearing. One of the Zhou Qinglan suddenly screamed. Chu Li immediately understood that this was the real Zhou Qinglan. The one who had spoken to him was an external transformation. The real Zhou Qinglan had unknowingly moved to another external transformation. The great heavenly demon was truly powerful to be able to switch external transformations at will. The great light Buddha spat out another golden lotus flower, which floated towards the real Zhou Qinglan. the white silk met it head-on. Ding 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 ding. Amidst the clear ringing, the golden lotus continued to float towards Zhou Qinglan. No matter how Zhou Qinglan changed his body shape, the distance between the lotus and Zhou Qinglan was constantly shrinking. It was getting closer and closer, and not even the silk chains could stop it. Chu Li suddenly staggered and turned to look at Jingxue in disbelief. Jingxue suddenly smiled. As she, like, you. Chu Li was shocked. You are, Jingxue chuckled. I never expected you to be fooled. It looks like you like this Miss Jingxue. Jin Shui the words. She, Shui, she and Jingxue she Qing. The she, was, Iu, king. Jingxue smiled and said, This is the firmament sword? Chu Li said, You know quite a lot. I know everything that Jingxue knows. Jingxue said with a smile, Don't worry, she's not dead yet. Chu Li said coldly, You deserve to die. She really likes Jingxue. Jingxue chuckled. All right, I thank you on her behalf. She can rest in peace. Die. Chu Li shouted. 16 runes left the book and shot towards Jingxue. Jingshue's expression suddenly turned solemn as she frowned at him. Chi. The 16 runes brushed past her and flew into the distance. They spun around and went back into the copybook. Chu Li stared at Jingxue with a dark expression. Jingxue looked at him in bewilderment before looking down at herself. Chu Li gritted his teeth. Fine. Zhou Qinglan, who was not far away, chuckled and said, What do you think of the great Skyfian's methods? Dingru, do you really have to go against me? Chu Li closed his eyes. Zhou Qinglan said, Are you going to watch the people in front of you die one by one? What's the point of killing me in the end? Besides, I have the heavenly demon's body. I'm immortal and indestructible. You can't kill me. Chu Li shut his eyes tightly. The 16 runes instantly transformed into 16 rays of light that shot out. Each of them hit a Zhou Qinglan and killed them one by one. 4 Zhou Qinglans floated up into a white light and merged with Su Lian, who was killing the golden chains. Zhou Qinglan's figure appeared in the void again. This time, it was fleeting and blurry like the moon in the water. She said, Dingru, if you continue to be stubborn, I'll have no choice but to kill you. Chu Li asked, What are you waiting for? You'll become my heavenly demon general, Zhou Qinglan said. Chu Li said calmly, You should give up on that idea. Let's wait and see then. Zhou Qinglan chuckled. She turned around and disappeared into the void. Then, Su Lian merged with the void one by one. Jingxue frowned as she stared at Zhou Qinglan without saying a word. Chu Li looked at her. Junior sister. What happened to me just now? Jingxue frowned. Senior brother, am I being controlled by her? Heavenly demon transformation, heavenly demon possession, Chu Li said. It's impossible to guard against. Fortunately, your mind is strong and she didn't take advantage of you. I'm still being controlled by her. Jingxue nodded. I can only watch helplessly. Don't worry. If she has killing intent, she'll activate the firmament sword, Chu Li said. The firmament sword section in the void behind him was still there. It slowly solidified. Benefiting from his increasingly thick killing intent, the firmament sword was also improving. He had never felt such a strong killing intent towards anyone before. He activated the Azure Cloud Divine Sword and continued to improve. Jingxue felt the sharp killing intent. The air seemed to have become a bone-piercing sword that pierced through her body and froze her in an instant. When Chu Li saw her pale face, he suddenly came to a realization. He withdrew his killing intent and suddenly headed toward the section in the void. The section became more solid and could be seen clearly. Jingxue could not help but look up. Then, tears welled up in her eyes and they quickly turned red and swollen. She had a splitting headache and her body swayed slightly, almost falling. Chu Li quickly supported her. Junior sister? Jingxue gently pushed his hand away and took out a silk handkerchief to wipe the corners of her eyes. Her swollen eyes looked even more lovely now. Chu reached out to support her and frowned. What's wrong? The section behind you is strange. Jingxue rolled her eyes at him and did not push his hand away. Instead, she pointed at the sky. Chu turned to glance at it and smiled. Is the great heavenly demon really immortal? Jingxue asked softly. She finally realized how terrifying the great heavenly demon was and asked, Masters Junior Su Xian? Don't worry. Chu shook his head. The next moment, he and Jingxue appeared on a mountain peak. Su Xian was meditating there, motionless like a jade statue. Jingxue sighed in relief. Chu Li's expression was grim. He said, Sect Leader Zhou. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Fastest website for mobile version. Chapter 4059. Su Xian turned around and suddenly transformed into Zhou Qinglan. Her beautiful face was full of smiles. Dingru, why don't we play a game? No need, Chu said coldly. Zhou Qinglan smiled. Let's see if you can find Su Xian. This is Masters Junior Su Xian. Chu said, but she's been possessed by you and you're controlling her to look like you. Interesting. Zhou Qinglan chuckled and nodded. That's right, she's Su Xian. She's hiding a big secret. Chu asked, do you really think you can control everyone? Ever since I mastered the heavenly demonic power, everyone is the same in my eyes. I can control them like my own body. Zhou Qinglan shook her head. To be honest, it's a little boring. There's no challenge at all. Chu frowned at her. Zhou Qinglan smiled. It's rare to find someone I can't control. It's really interesting, so I haven't killed you. I can't kill you and you can't kill me. Chu said. Who gave you that confidence? Zhou Qinglan sneered. Chu said, let's try. Zhou Qinglan chuckled. I can kill you, but it'll take some effort. Killing her is easy. As she spoke, she raised her right hand and placed it on her temple. She smiled. My head will explode with a slight movement. Do you want to try? Jingshue's expression changed. Chu said, you can't kill Masters Junior Su Xian. Oh, I'd like to try. Zhou Qinglan glared at him. She channeled energy in her right palm and was about to end Su Xian's life. Ding! Her right hand suddenly lit up and she was sent flying. The Great Light Buddha appeared in Chu Li's mind. He stretched out his huge palm and punched Zhou Qinglan. Bang! Zhou Qinglan suddenly transformed into Su Xian. The Great Light Buddha flicked his other palm. TSS. A whistle came from the void. A figure in palace attire appeared faintly and was pierced through the heart by the Great Light Buddha's finger energy. The Great Light Scripture's finger energy was the Great Light Finger. It contained the purest energy of the Great Light Scripture. The figure in palace attire suddenly stopped and turned into a shadow that crashed toward Chu Li. Chu Li punched. Bang! The figure in the palace dress collided with his palm energy and flew backward. The giant spirit palm energy was vast and enormous, almost endless. Chu Li thrust out his right fist again and used the giant spirit fist. Bang! The figure in the palace robe retreated once again, this time clearly visible. It was Zhou Qinglan, cold and indifferent. This was the real Zhou Qinglan. Bam, 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 bam. Chu Li did not stop punching. One after another, his giant spirit fist became stronger and stronger. His power seemed to be stacking. In the end, he punched out with such force that the void almost cracked. Zhou Qinglan appeared weak under this punch, like a fallen leaf in the wind, drifting along with the fist energy, unable to block it. Chu Li felt that under such circumstances, his understanding of the giant spirit fist was getting deeper and deeper. Only such a powerful enemy could stimulate his potential. The giant spirit fist continued to improve, one punch after another. In the end, it was as if there was only the biting cold fist wind in the world, and nothing else. Zhou Qinglan suddenly let out a sneer and vanished with a flash. The next moment, he appeared behind Jingxue and gently struck out with his palm. Bang! Jingxue spat out an arrow of blood in the air. Her body also emitted a white light that shot towards Zhou Qinglan. Zhou Qinglan blocked with his right palm. The white light collided with his right palm and disappeared without a trace. "Damn it!" Chu Li roared. As he watched Jingxue fall to the ground like a rag doll, he took a step forward and caught her already cold body. The extreme cold and force wreaked havoc in her body. Chu Li's mind was blank, almost unable to think. There was only an unstoppable killing intent. His eyes were filled with Jingxue, who had her eyes closed. The dark red at the corner of her mouth stung his eyes. "Ah!" He hugged Jingxue and howled into the sky. The howl was like a rolling wave. 16 words appeared in the void behind him. They had already left the script, and were solid and pure as if they were imprinted in the void. As he howled, the 16 words flashed and actually intertwined with each other. They began to rapidly fuse and unravel one by one. Then, they quickly condensed and formed a void word. In the next moment, it suddenly disappeared. "Huh!" Zhou Qinglan exclaimed softly in surprise. His figure suddenly blurred and then disappeared. A string of golden liquid appeared in the void and squirmed incessantly. It suddenly turned into a golden light and was about to chase after Zhou Qinglan. Chu Li gritted his teeth. "TSS, TSS, TSS, TSS." The void word suspended in the air suddenly rushed over and swallowed the golden liquid like a black hole. Chu Li knew that this was Zhou Qinglan's blood. The great heavenly demon was immortal and his blood was golden. This was a secret of the great heavenly demon that no one knew. As he watched the golden liquid disappear into the void, Chu Li's expression turned cold. He gritted his teeth and was about to continue his chase. Then, he looked at Jingxue in his arms and Su Xian who was lying on the ground. The next moment, he picked up Su Xian and carried Jingxue to the golden pool. The two of them floated toward the golden pool. Su Xian went straight down and landed in the golden pool. Jingxue stopped above the surface of the golden pool. Wisps of black gas floated out of her body and floated into the air without dispersing. Chu Li suddenly looked up. Heavenly lotuses appeared in the void and turned into rays of white light that fell toward Jingxue. The black gas on Jingxue's body grew thicker but became fainter when the white light shone on it. As the white light continued to envelop her, the black gas became fainter and finally disappeared. Only after the black gas was gone did the golden pool acknowledge Jingxue's identity and allow her to enter the golden pool. Chu Li heaved a long sigh of relief. Zhou Qinglan's attack was truly vicious. If not for the firmament divine sword's sword energy protecting her soul, Jingxue's soul would have been destroyed. When that happened, no matter how much he hated and regretted it, it would be useless. As he watched Jingxue slowly recover, Chu Li's expression was extremely gloomy. His desire to kill Zhou Qinglan was like boiling lava. Jingxue did not move as if she had fallen asleep. However, Su Xian quickly floated up and slowly floated above the golden pool. She suddenly opened her eyes and looked left and right. Chu Li fist saluted. "Masters Junior. Where is she?" Su Xian asked. Chu Li replied, "She left." "I didn't do anything shameful, did I?" Su Xian asked. Chu Li asked, "Masters Junior, aren't you awake?" "I'm afraid that my lucidity is an illusion." Su Xian shook her head. "I was completely controlled by her. Who knows if my senses are being manipulated as well?" Chu Li shook his head. "Masters Junior, you've been here all this time and haven't done anything. She didn't impersonate me to do anything else?" Su Xian asked. Chu Li replied, "She tried to trick us, but I saw through her. Jingxue also fell into her trap and almost lost her life. She's a scourge indeed." Su Xian frowned. You can't get rid of her, can you? Chu Li shook his head slowly. That's true. She's the great heavenly demon. Su Xian shook her head. Masters Jr., you know about the great heavenly demon? Chu Li sensed something amiss. Su Xian already knew about the great heavenly demon, but he did not report it. Even if she said that someone would impersonate her, she did not mention the great heavenly demon. It's passed down from ancient times and passed down from generation to generation. Su Xian nodded. The great heavenly demon of ancient times did evil and caused unrest in the world. Chu Li's spirits lifted. What happened after that? What happened to the great heavenly demon? I heard that she was banished from this world, Su Xian replied. Chu Li felt discouraged and shook his head. Is there no way to deal with the great heavenly demon? I've heard that there's a secret technique that can be used to deal with the great heavenly demon, Su Xian said. Chu Li's spirits lifted again. Masters Jr., please tell me. There's an inheritance in ancient Buddhism called the boundless light technique. Su Xian said, by burning one's essence, energy, and spirit, it transforms into the boundless light technique of Buddhism. It can make the great heavenly demon convert to Buddhism and eliminate all killing. Please remember the domain name of this book. The fastest website for mobile version. Chapter 4060. Convert. Chu Li was stunned. Su Xian's clothes fluttered like a fairy as she whispered, Buddhism is weak now. Our Lotus sect is actually a branch of Buddhism. Chu Li nodded. Su Xian said, in ancient times, Buddhism was the natural enemy of heavenly demon. That's why they were afraid of each other. Chu Li nodded. Su Xian continued, enlightened masters belong to a foreign species that didn't exist in ancient times. I didn't expect them to be so afraid of heavenly demon. Chu Li asked, where can I get the boundless light technique? It's passed down by ancient Buddhism. Lotus sect doesn't have it. Su Xian shook her head. Chu Li was disappointed. Su Xian asked, Jingru, you want to use this technique? Chu Li sighed. If I don't use it, I can't control her. The world will be in chaos. He thought of Shao Qi and the other two girls, then looked at Jing Shui and Su Xian in front of him. If Zhou Qinglan continued to wreak havoc, they would die. He could not tolerate this. They could not die no matter what. Even if he died, he could not let them die. Su Xian frowned at him. Are you willing to leave this world? Chu Li said, Masters Jr., let's find the boundless light technique first. Without it, there's no point in talking. Su Xian nodded and turned to look at Jing Shui. Jing Shui did not move as if she was asleep. Chu Li's murderous intent grew. He asked, Masters Jr., you know? Su Xian shook her head. Chu Li stared at her and said, Masters Jr., this is related to the world. Sacrificing myself to help the world, I will die a worthy death. It's hard to find. Su Xian looked elsewhere. Chu Li chuckled and said, Masters Jr., think about it. Even if I'm alive, I can't stop her from killing the Lotus sect's disciples. Watching each and every disciple being manipulated by her and turning against each other, how can I bear it? Su Xian sighed. I can't let you sacrifice yourself every time. I'm willing. Chu Li said, I hope Masters Jr. can fulfill my wish. Su Xian was silent. Chu Li closed fist saluted and did not move. On the top floor of the Sutra Library, there's a scripture that records the boundless light technique, Su Xian said. Chu Li gave a fist salute and bowed deeply before disappearing in a flash. Sigh. She let out a long sigh and looked at Jingshui, who was floating in the pool. She wondered if Jingshui would blame her after she woke up. As she thought this, Jingshui suddenly opened her eyes. She floated into the air and completely woke up. Her eyes looked around. Where's senior brother? He'll return to the sect first. Su Xian actually felt a little guilty. Jingxue said, "Did something major happen in the sect again?" Su Xian shook her head. Jingxue smiled and said, "That's odd. If there was nothing important, senior brother would be by his side. If he wasn't by his side, then there must be something important." Su Xian said, "Jingxue, did you lose your martial arts?" "Thankfully, I had the jade talisman to protect me." Jing Shue's expression changed slightly. Thinking back to the previous scene, she could not dodge at all. All she could do was watch helplessly. Su Xian gently nodded. "Then let's go back." "Let's go." Jingxue was extremely curious. Why would her senior brother abandon her and return to the sect first? When the two of them returned to Chu Li's courtyard, he was reading a Buddhist scripture. He kept shaking his head, as if he was overwhelmed with emotions. "Senior brother," Jingxue called out loudly. Chu Li put down the scripture and looked at Jingxue. He smiled. "Junior sister is fine. What are you looking at, senior brother?" Jingxue picked up the scripture and glanced at the cover. Maha Immeasurable Light Scripture. Is senior brother going to comprehend the scripture? She recalled the great light Buddha that Chu Li had cast earlier. It was solemn and holy, making one involuntarily submit to it. It was the air of an eminent monk. Could he be an eminent monk of Buddhism? She felt an inexplicable sense of heaviness. Based on her senior brother's actions, it was possible. He was calm and gentle. Chu Li said, "This Buddhist scripture is truly exquisite. It's an eye-opener. Buddhist scriptures have always been like this." "It's not surprising," Jingxue said nonchalantly. Her original world also had Buddhism, and she was a pure Taoist. However, Buddhism and Taoism also competed fiercely, so they were familiar with each other and understood each other. Taoism was proficient in cultivation, while Buddhism was proficient in principles. Both emphasized different things, so it was difficult for them to suppress each other. Chu Li shook his head. "This Buddhist scripture is different. Junior sister, I plan to set up a large formation in the sect. Come and help me." "All right," Jingxue said. Su Xian looked at him. Chu Li shook his head lightly, indicating for her not to speak. In the following 3 days, Chu Li and Jingxue did not rest. They quickly built 6 pagodas in the Lotus sect. Each pagoda had a golden body Saraira enshrined on it. He had brought them from the demon-subduing hall. It was rare to see a Saraira of an eminent monk in this world, because there was no Buddhism. He had set up this formation by imitating the Great Mercy Temple's large formation. Even if it could not stop Zhou Qinglan, it could still make her slightly wary. Once she approached, the large formation would react. When it sensed her approach, it would even counterattack and force her to retreat. After the large formation was set up, Chu Li was still not satisfied. He thought hard and finally stuck the 6 sword scrolls on top of the pagodas. These 6 scrolls looked very ordinary, and there was nothing strange about them. Then, he went into isolated cultivation to comprehend the boundless light technique. Early in the morning, the Lotus sect woke up. The disciples were either cultivating in their courtyards or cultivating in the martial arts field. The martial arts field was bustling. A handsome young man sized up the pagoda not far away. He looked at the scroll floating on the pagoda and was very displeased. He said to the honest-looking young man beside him, "Senior brother Jing Hui, this pagoda was built to strengthen the protection of the large formation, but there's a piece of paper stuck on it. What's the big deal? It can be blown away at any time." "Yes," the honest-looking young man agreed. A horse-faced young man beside him curled his lips and sneered. "Junior brother Jing Tong, this was built by junior brother Jing Ru. How can it be redundant? Senior brother Jing Feng, although junior brother Jing Ru's martial arts are superb, he might not be right in everything, right?" The handsome young man was unconvinced. "He's not a god. There will always be some negligence, right?" The horse-faced young man, Jing Feng, snorted. Even if there is negligence, it's not something we can see. Senior brother Jing Feng is belittling himself. Jing Tong shook his head. Without a heart to challenge authority, how can one become a top expert? Heh! Jing Feng shook his head in disdain. At this moment, the pagoda not far away from them suddenly shone brightly. Then, a golden light enveloped the entire lotus sect. A sweet-sounding chuckle sounded, tugging at everyone's heartstrings. This chuckle was indescribably pleasant to the ears. It exuded an inexplicable magnetism, as if it was rubbing against their hearts. Jingru, is this your method again? The laughing voice sounded again. Everyone's heartstrings trembled non-stop. They all had a strong urge to see the owner of the voice. Let's see if you can stop me. The chuckle continued. Chi. Jingtong saw the paper that could be blown away by a strong wind at any time suddenly tremble. Then, a white light shot out. Consider yourself capable. The chuckle turned into a shout and drifted away. Everyone felt disappointed and frustrated. P.S. Update complete. Please remember this book's original domain name. Mobile version's fastest updated website. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.